Chapter 1. Ulysses and the others were naturally brought to the system world by Dustless. The difference between this world and the previous one was like the difference between heaven and hell. The endless towering mountains extended into the distance without an end, as if they extended to the end of the world. Countless immortal mist drifted halfway up the mountain, and countless white marble palaces could be vaguely seen hidden between the mountains, one after another. It was extremely spectacular. Welcome to my world. Seeing the shocked faces of Ulysses and the others as if they were country bumpkins, Dustless couldn't help but feel proud. Every girl who entered his territory was so shocked, and Dustless's vanity was quite satisfied. Just pick some palaces that you like. Dustless pointed at the palaces all over the mountains and said extremely arrogantly, "Don't be polite with me. I'm the biggest landlord, the master of this world." The girls didn't stand on ceremony after hearing that and picked some palaces that they liked. But what surprised them was that there were actually people in many palaces, and after asking around, they found out that they were Dustless's confidants. Claudia, Ulysses, and the others immediately changed their understanding of Dustless. Previously, they didn't think that this guy had the nature of a pervert. At least he had some bottom line. But after seeing those confidants, they could almost form a company. He's simply a human trafficker. Ulysses and the others complained angrily, but this group of women had deep feelings for Dustless. They loved each other and didn't have any conflicts. Otherwise, they would have already made a scene. Dustless stayed in the system world for a few days during this period and tried to create a human with Claudia. Of course, there was a large group of people, and after a few days and nights, he had to leave in a sorry state. Otherwise, he would really be squeezed dry. Even if he was a 10-tailed beast with unlimited physical strength and energy, he couldn't handle a bunch of tigresses. In the blue sky, lazy white clouds floated around. Looking at the sky was exceptionally clear. Damn it, why do I always transmigrate to such a damn place? Dustless looked at the unfamiliar students around him and smiled bitterly. This scene seemed familiar. The last time he had transmigrated, he had also landed in an unfamiliar school. Please wait a moment. Just as Dustless was in a dilemma, a very gentle voice suddenly sounded. Dustless subconsciously looked over and saw a handsome and sunny boy looking at him gently. "Are you a new student?" "Hello, I'm Ebony Hue." The handsome boy introduced himself politely. Dustless narrowed his eyes. "Eben Shine? Isn't that the fallen knight? Don't tell me this is..." Dustless's eyes lit up as he instantly understood where he was. Cough, cough, cough. Dustless coughed awkwardly, then greeted Eben Ihue in a friendly manner. "Excuse me, are you Eben?" "Actually, I'm a student who just entered the Broken Army Academy. I'm not familiar with the place and got lost." Dustless decisively chose to bluff. Grumble, grumble. At the same time, his stomach grumbled. Dustless blushed slightly and said, "I just arrived and don't know where the cafeteria is, so why don't you bring me there?" Eben Ihue looked at Dustless suspiciously. For some reason, he felt that this person was a little strange. If he was a student of the Broken Army Academy, why didn't he have a uniform? Thinking of this, Eben Ihue's heart immediately became alert. "Okay, come with me." The boy showed his signature sunny smile, then took the initiative to lead Dustless away. Seeing this, Dustless followed without hesitation. Transmigrating to this place was quite taxing on his body, and he was really hungry. Along the way, Dustless beat around the bush with Eben Ihue, asking a lot of questions about this world. He could finally confirm that this kid in front of him was that protagonist. "That's the cafeteria in front." Eben Ihue pointed at the end of the corridor where there was a closed door. "Thank you." Dustless nodded lightly, then walked over with a smile. He couldn't help but feel strange because the cafeteria in front was too small, more like an office. "Forget it. No matter what, let's fill our stomachs first. We'll talk about the future later." Dustless walked to the door and gently pushed it open, but the scene in front of him stunned him. How is this a cafeteria? It was obviously an office, and there was a woman in a suit sitting in front of the desk, seriously reading some documents. "Who are you?" The woman looked up at Dustless, frowned, and asked, "Strange, you're a student of the Broken Army Academy? Why haven't I seen you before? What's your name?" Dustless was speechless. He looked at the woman in front of him and had some impression of her. After thinking for a while, he immediately understood that he had been tricked. Cafeteria, what the F asterisk CK? This woman in front of him was called Shingonji Hino, and this was obviously the chairman's office. Chairman, I felt that this guy was a little suspicious, so I brought him here. Ebony Hue suddenly walked in and pointed at Dustless. Where's the basic trust between people? F asterisk CK, we didn't have any grievances in the past, and we didn't have any grudges recently. I just wanted to make a living, and you actually tricked me like this? Dustless felt like countless crows were flying over his head. He suppressed his anger and wanted to beat someone up, and looked at Ebony Hue with a fake smile. Boy, well done. Just you wait, this is definitely not over. Chapter 2. Even if you don't have IS, I won't go easy on you. Under the control of Cecilia's will, the 4 guns floating around her all aimed at Dustless. So. A dense barrage of bullets shot out from the muzzles. The barrage of bullets was extremely fast and disappeared with a so sound. Boom, boom, boom. The next moment, Dustless's location was engulfed in flames. The violent explosion made the entire simulation field tremble. Although it was just a barrage of bullets, they were actually made of high-density explosives. After being hit, not only would the flesh be torn open, but the body would also be burned to ashes. Arrogant guy. Let's see if you still dare to be so arrogant in front of me, Cecilia. The girl's lips curled into a victorious smile. She hummed proudly and couldn't help but think excitedly. Will I become famous in the world because of this? Thinking of this, Cecilia's heart was quite excited. Her heartbeat accelerated, and her beautiful face was covered with a layer of blush. In the past few years, Dustless was too famous. The whole world knew of him as the demon instructor. There were even rumors that even Veiled Thousand Winter was personally trained by him. Stupid girl, why is your face so red? Is it because you're in love? The cold voice came from behind. Cecilia immediately shivered. Just as she was about to turn around, she froze. Pa! The crisp sound lingered in her ears for a long time. Cecilia jumped up instantly like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She turned her head and angrily rebuked. You. How dare you hit my butt? Oh my God, are all men so barbaric in a place like Japan? Other people don't know, but I am barbaric like this. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly and yawned. If you have a problem with it, just give up on the entrance exam. No one will force you. Don't even think about it. Cecilia rejected him fiercely. Give up? No way. Not only did she have to pass the IS entrance exam, she also had to take revenge on Dustless. But then again, how did he dodge my attack? I didn't even see a shadow. Was I too careless? Cecilia frowned, looking at the sea of fire that was still burning. Her eyes were full of confusion. She had clearly hit Dustless just now, but this guy had sneaked behind her and even hit her, but thinking of this, Cecilia's anger was ignited. She was ashamed and angry at the same time. You don't understand gentlemanly etiquette. This is my return to you. The 4 cannons floating around Cecilia spread out and aimed at Dustless from different directions. Bang, bang, bang. With the previous humiliation, Cecilia was now like a barrel of gunpowder, firing with all her might. At this moment, she was also holding a gun that was nearly 2 meters long, and all the bullets were aimed at Dustless. Boom, boom, boom. The place where Dustless was standing was once again engulfed in boundless flames. A huge black crater was blasted into the ground, and he disappeared along with it. *T, don't tell me he's dead? Realizing that Dustless was nowhere to be found, Cecilia's face turned pale. Defeating an instructor and killing an instructor were 2 completely different problems. Idiot, this kind of spark is still miles away from burning me. The ghostly voice sounded behind her again. Remembering what happened before, Cecilia immediately covered her butt. Slap! The moment she turned her head, another crisp slap landed. Cecilia immediately felt a burning pain in her cleavage. Shameless, shameless, shameless. Asshole, I'm going to file a complaint against you. Cecilia was so angry that tears kept rolling down her face. He hit her, but before, and now her breasts. What kind of instructor was this? He was a hooligan that escaped from prison. File a complaint against me? Hearing this, Dustless curled his lips in disdain and said with disdain, I'm the boss of this school. You want to file a complaint against me? Believe it or not, I'll expel you right now and make sure you can't step into IS Academy for the rest of your life. You brought this upon yourself. Who told you to call me a male yaksha? Dustless's attitude was extremely unfriendly as he added, I'm just a narrow-minded person. But, although this chick is young, she's developed quite well. Thinking of the touch of the chest, just now, Wu Chen's calm heart had a ripple. One of his hands almost couldn't catch it. Okay. Cecilia resisted the urge to vomit blood and said okay 3 times in a row. It was obvious that she was truly enraged. As a noble of Ing Kingdom, when had she ever been humiliated like this? Let's see how you're going to ambush me this time. As she spoke, Cecilia gently flew up and gradually flew into the sky. She was about 20 to 30 meters above the ground. Looking down at the tiny black dot on the ground, Cecilia's smile was like a flower. How can you defeat me without IS? No, don't even talk about defeating me. Can you even touch me? Although a bit arrogant, you're very smart. You know how to use your strengths to make up for your weaknesses. Wu Chun raised his head slightly and looked at Cecilia, who was hovering in the sky. He nodded slightly. To be honest, once Cecilia attacked from the sky, unless it was an IS user, there was no doubt that a male instructor like Dustless would be defeated. Other than Ikia Vega, there was no other male in the world that could control IS. How about this? Let's make a bet. Looking down at Dustless on the ground, Cecilia seemed to feel that the outcome was already decided. Her crisp and arrogant voice echoed throughout the simulation field. Whoever loses will forever be the other's slave. How about that? No matter what the request is, it must be obeyed unconditionally. Today, Cecilia suffered unprecedented humiliation. How could she let Dustless go? Not only did she want to defeat this guy, but she also wanted to make him her slave for life. Are you serious? It just so happens that my back has been hurting lately. Dustless looked at Cecilia flying in the sky with a smile. His eyes narrowed into crescents like a cunning fox. He chuckled. Every day when I get off work, it would be best if I have a maid to serve me. Chapter 3. Jilanshu's heart was incomparably complicated. It was as if a bottle of mixed feelings had been knocked over. He gently stared at Yuji, but Yuji's face was full of fear. Jilanshu's heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. His sister looked at him with eyes full of hatred and hostility. It's a good thing that Yuji is with this guy for now. She won't be targeted by others, so it's not a bad thing. Jilanshu comforted himself and showed a faint smile. It was as if he had really gotten over it, but it was still full of bitterness and reluctance. Moreover, Yulan Yuji was not as simple as his sister. In the vampire family, intermarriage between siblings was common, especially in the family of pure-blooded vampires. This kind of thing was not strange. Watching his fiancée being hugged by someone else while he could do nothing, Yulan Shu felt like he had eaten a fly. He felt nauseous and suffocated. It's snowing heavily outside. Come in and sit. Black Lord Hui, Yin said in a friendly manner. He even made an inviting gesture, inviting Dustless to come in. Yuji, Black House Hui, Yin also stared at the girl with slight astonishment. She and Yuji's mother, Jilan Shu, knew each other from the tree. Naturally, she recognized Yuji at first glance. What puzzled her was, why was it Wu Chun who was hugging her and not Jilan Shu? Are you too hungry? I have some food here. Black Lord Hui, Yin took out some biscuits. Although he was puzzled, he didn't ask anymore. Seeing Jilan Shu's bitter and sullen face, he guessed what had happened. Where did you come from? Black Lord Hui, Yin looked at Dustless meaningfully. This was the first person who could make Jilan Shu suffer, and it seemed to be a human. I came from a place far, far away. Dustless drank a mouthful of water. He knew that Black Lord Hui, Yin wanted to pry for information, but he was also a newcomer. How far away is very far? It must have been hard for you to come all the way here. Jilan Shu put his hands in his pockets, and his tone miraculously became a lot friendlier. Perhaps due to the presence of Yuji, The occasion was not suitable for him to get angry. He did not want to leave a bad impression on Yuji because of his relationship with Dustless. That's none of your business. Dustless didn't give Jalanshu any face. Jalanshu's lips moved, but in the end, she let out a muffled groan and fell silent. Hungry? Yuji suddenly took a biscuit and placed it in front of Dustless's mouth. Dustless immediately ate it without any hesitation. It tastes good. Seeing this scene, Jalanshu's face became even more depressed. This guy was extremely possessive, just like in the original work. If it wasn't for Zhue Shengling's value, Jalanshu would have already dismembered him into 1,000 pieces. After all, he hadn't sucked Yuji's blood yet. In the end, Zhue Shengling, this bastard, beat him to it. Jalanshu's heart was extremely unbalanced. I suddenly smell something special. Dustless suddenly opened his mouth and glanced at Jalanshu. What's that smell? Hei Yin and Yuji curiously looked at Dustless. At the same time, they took 2 deep breaths and didn't find any strange smell. Dustless looked directly at Jalanshu. He playfully looked at Jalanshu's tense face and said, "It's the smell of vinegar. I am truly impressed by your courage." Hei Yin followed Dustless's gaze and glanced at Jalanshu. When he saw Jalanshu's dark expression, he immediately understood what was going on. He couldn't help but secretly give a thumbs up to Dustless. This guy was simply playing with his life. Wasn't he afraid of being dismembered by Jalanshu? I'm going out to take a breather. Jalanshu walked out with heavy steps. With every step, the floor cracked. However, this guy paid attention to suppressing his emotions and didn't explode. I heard that you have just killed a vampire. May I know your name? Maybe we are in the same line of work. I am Hei Yin. Yin was very interested in Dustless. Dustless was the first person who could make Jalanshu suffer and didn't dare to do anything. Call me Dustless. Dustless also took the initiative to introduce himself. He looked at the wind and snow outside the window and said, I have a presumptuous request. I would like to temporarily leave Yuji here. After hearing this, Hei Yin and Yuji stared at Dustless, especially Yuji, who directly hugged Dustless's arm and cried, What did I do wrong? Don't abandon me. After saying this, she hugged Dustless tightly and clutched his clothes. We haven't even known each other for an hour, and this little girl is already so dependent on me. She is too naive and easily deceived. Dustless sighed and said, I didn't say that I would leave you. Actually, I don't have anywhere to go right now. Really? Hearing this, Hei Yan's eyes lit up and suggested, Why don't you stay here with me? Yuji is not young anymore. She will need to go to school sooner or later. Dustless lowered his head and thought for a while. He didn't have a fixed place to stay, so he nodded and agreed. It shouldn't be a problem. Just don't regret it. All right, are you a human? Hei Yin suddenly asked. Dustless was silent and didn't answer. Hei Yin thought that he was angry and quickly explained, I don't mean anything else. It's just that, kind of, but also not. Dustless gave an answer that confused Hei Yin. He looked at him speechlessly. What did he mean? Was he a vampire and also a human? It's too stupid to judge a person's character based on their race. Although some people are human, they are worse than animals. In the eyes of humans, vampires are cruel and heartless. In fact, some vampires also have a kind heart. Dustless said slowly. Hei Yan's eyes lit up, and he looked at him with friendliness. He felt that he had met someone who understood him. His dream was for humans and vampires to live in peace. Dustless seemed to have this intention too. Hei Yin knew that Yuji was a pure-blooded vampire. Jalanshu also pointed out that Yuji was his sister, indirectly acknowledging the vampire's identity. Dustless didn't mind. The two of them, in some ways, were like-minded. Chapter 4. Not only was it dark above Chuishue's head, but the sky within a few kilometers was also dark, as if it was the end of the world. The sun that shone down from the sky was completely blocked. Mountains? 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 Chuishue was stunned, staring at the floating mountains in the sky. Dustless was casually controlling them, ordering them around. That simple and relaxed look was as smooth as eating and drinking, as if it was a game. Chueshua was completely stunned, standing there motionless like a statue. She already thought that she was very powerful when she made the building float in the air, but Dustless used the Tensegan's power to move the mountains in the nearby city to her. The contrast between before and after was like heaven and earth. What about you? Now, you also have two choices. Dustless said slowly, you gave me two choices just now, and now I will also give you two choices. First, from now on, pledge allegiance to me and be my servant. Second, just like what you said just now, I will be a little harsh and make you disappear from this planet. Dustless's words were like a cold storm, blowing Chueshua's body, causing her to tremble. No, I am a hero of the Hero Association. How can I pledge allegiance to a nobody like you? Chueshua gritted her teeth. Looking unwilling and unwilling, she continued to struggle. And killing me won't do you any good. My sister is Trembling Tornado, the second most powerful S-Class hero. If you kill me, she will definitely hunt you down all over the world. This wasn't nonsense. Tornado did have a morbid desire to protect Chueshua. Ha ha, this is ridiculous. Who knew that Dustless didn't take it to heart at all? He looked at Chueshua with extreme sarcasm and mocked. I remember, you actually hate your sister very much. After all, she always oppresses you, and now you want to use her name to survive. What a joke, woman. Wu Chun ridiculed in an eccentric manner. Blowing Snow didn't know how to respond. That was the truth. With a sister like Tornado, Blowing Snow was under a lot of pressure. Even when facing Tornado, she felt inferior and couldn't raise her head. She was determined to surpass Tornado. Since she couldn't do it alone, she would find more people. That was why she established the Snow-Blowing Group. But didn't she still have to rely on Tornado to survive? I'm sorry, but your threats are useless against me. Die. After saying that, Dustless coldly withdrew the gravity. Without his control, the mountain debris that filled the sky suddenly poured down and smashed towards the ground. You lunatic! Snowstorm couldn't help but gasp. Was this bastard not afraid of being torn apart by the tornado? Staring at the debris falling from the sky, Snowstorm suddenly remembered the past. Because her sister was too outstanding, there were always people who liked to compare them. If there was no comparison, there would be no harm. So, she had been living under the shadow of her sister for all these years. I haven't surpassed my sister yet. I can't die yet. I promise you. I'll be your servant. Snowstorm almost screamed out the last sentence with tears in her eyes. Because at this moment, her dignity and confidence had been completely crushed by Dustless. Luckily, you spoke quickly. Otherwise, if you were delayed for a while, it would have been a different ending. Wu Chen's voice sounded again, and the tense atmosphere disappeared. Chueshua subconsciously raised his head and looked. That incomparably huge mountain fragment was already floating above his head. It was so close that he could touch it if he stretched out his hand. Gulp. Snowstorm couldn't help but choke. Just like Dustless said, luckily she spoke quickly. If she played with it for a while, she would have been turned into minced meat. Pa! Then Dustless snapped his fingers. A large amount of mountain debris floated into the distance. Snowstorm's crisis was also resolved. Phew! I'm finally saved. After the mountain debris flew away, the bright sunlight shone down on her face. Snowstorm looked up at the sky and enjoyed the comfortable sunlight. Even though it was blinding, she had never felt so comfortable before. It was great to be alive. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Dustless. Dustless lazily walked to Snowstorm's side. Looking at the girl who had a face full of joy after surviving the disaster, he said softly, Since you are my person, you should withdraw from the Hero Association. Withdraw from the Hero Association? Snowstorm's face stiffened. She said with some resistance, I'm a hero. It doesn't seem to have any conflict with you, being your servant, right? Nonsense. There must be a conflict for you to withdraw from the Hero Association. Those idiots have already put me on the wanted list. Dustless said with a gloomy face. He was afraid that Snowstorm didn't understand what he meant. 10 Tails suddenly appeared from his back. This. Are you really the 10 Tails weirdo from yesterday? Snowstorm's eyes constricted violently. She looked at Dustless in shock. Aren't the so-called weirdos all ugly people? Why is Dustless so handsome? His chiseled face, exquisite facial features, and neat and clean short hair made him look cool and capable. Especially his figure. It suited Snowstorm's taste. During the battle, she used Hurricane to blow up Dustless's clothes. The 8 well-proportioned abs on his abdomen left a deep impression on Snowstorm. Furthermore, Dustless seemed to be able to transform at will. He could switch between human and weirdo at will. Bullsh asterisk T weirdo. I'm not a weirdo. I'm the 10 Tails weirdo. It's just that those idiots are ignorant. I just came here, and they made me a weirdo. Dustless said unhappily. He didn't cause any damage. What the F asterisk CK? As for the Metal Knight, to put it bluntly, it was Dustless's passive counterattack. It was the guy who provoked him first. He even used Dustless as a test target for his new weapon. Chapter 5. This guy is really special. No wonder Principal Margaret values him so much. Looks like it's not just because he's from Bridget's family. There must be some other unknown reason. Aoki and he muttered to themselves. They were confused about Principal Margaret's thoughts. They looked out of the window and saw that the black cars behind them were all Pandora, and they were all elites. And it was worth mentioning that this wasn't all of their forces. Behind these black cars, there were also several trucks. Looking carefully, they were all Pandora. Wasn't it strange? Did they need so many Pandora to escort one person? This lineup looked like they were escorting a criminal. Surprisingly calm. Aoki and he glanced at Dustless and smiled bitterly. They looked up and saw Dustless lying on the side with his eyes closed. His expression was calm, as if he was asleep. On the way, Dustless was very quiet and didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Thus, they arrived at Signatix Academy unscathed. Accompanied by Aoki and Yi, they went to the principal's office. Principal Margaret, he's here. In a slightly oppressive office, the air was stuffy. There were only 3 people. Principal Margaret, Aoki, Yi, and Dustless. This is the principal? She's more plain and simple than I imagined. How disappointing. Dustless lowered his head and muttered to himself. He instantly lost interest in this so-called principal. Aoki and Yi, thank you for your hard work. Go back and rest first. I have something to discuss with Mr. Dustless. Principal Margaret showed a kind face and waved her hand. I understand. Hearing this, Aoki and Yi nodded and left silently. Only Dustless and Margaret were left in the large office. The atmosphere also fell into silence. Margaret's gaze was focused on Dustless, and a cold light flashed in her eyes from time to time. What do you mean? After a long while, someone finally spoke. The person who spoke was Dustless, and his tone was cold and filled with dissatisfaction. Upon hearing this, Principal Margaret's expression changed slightly. She could hear the coldness in Dustless's tone. She pretended to be confused and said, "What do you mean by that? I don't understand. Still playing dumb with me?" Dustless smiled contemptuously, pointed at the closed door, and sneered. How many people are waiting outside? Even if there weren't 100 of them, there were at least a few dozen of them, right? How bored are you? With Dustless's words, Principal Margaret could no longer maintain her composure. The friendliness on her face disappeared and was replaced by an unprecedented coldness. How rude. Before asking others, shouldn't you explain yourself first? Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, Principal Margaret no longer hid anything and said bluntly, "You've been in Bridget's family for 3 days. Find out what happened yourself." Other than Bioletto, Bridget, who is intact, everyone else died one after another. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? So it's about this matter. Hearing this, Dustless revealed a look of understanding and asked with interest, "So you think that I'm the murderer?" "I don't have any evidence." Principal Margaret shook her head and answered truthfully. Then, she said in a serious tone, "But you're the most suspicious. This matter has caused an uproar in the world." "Is that so?" Dustless didn't care about this. He poured himself a cup of coffee and said leisurely, "So what do you think now? Do you intend to arrest me directly, or do you want to use peaceful means before resorting to force?" Principal Margaret didn't say a word. She knitted her brows and stared at Dustless. Even though she was close by, she felt like she was looking at flowers in a fog. She couldn't see through Dustless's thoughts and couldn't figure out what this man was thinking. If it were an ordinary person who knew that there were dozens of Pandoras outside, and they were all elites among elites, they would definitely be scared to death. But Dustless, on the other hand, didn't care at all. His pair of calm eyes were as calm as still water. There was no fear in them, and his aura was even stronger than Principal Margaret's. "What do you want to do? Hurry up. Don't waste my time," Dustless said impatiently. "Phew." Principal Margaret took a deep breath. After a moment of silence, she finally said, "Although you are a suspect, there is no direct evidence pointing to you killing the members of Bridget's family. There are no signs of their assets being misappropriated. All of it is attributed to Violet L. Bridget, you came looking for me in such a big way just to say this nonsense? It's so boring. I really feel bad for the dozens of Pandoras standing guard outside," Dustless said casually. He didn't take the so-called Dean seriously at all. This bastard. Hearing this, Principal Margaret's mouth twitched and her expression kept changing. This brat was too arrogant. He didn't take her seriously at all and spoke so casually. It felt like she was talking to a passerby. "However, it's good that you came to this school. We also need to investigate you." Margaret stared at Dustless and didn't hide anything. "Whatever." Dustless shrugged calmly without changing his expression. Not to mention that they couldn't find anything. Even if they did, what could they do? Count on the group of Pandoras to catch Dustless? Stop joking. They were not in the same dimension. Even the legendary Pandoras could only look up to him. "What other requests do you have? If not, then according to Miss Violet L. Bridget's letter, you will be our school's teacher from now on." Chapter 6. Dustless suddenly became a candidate for the general of the new Leon group. This made many demons flabbergasted. First, he became the boss of the Demon Ox group. Then, he suddenly became a candidate for the general. This was a typical example of salted fish turning over a new leaf. Although many were dissatisfied, there was nothing they could do. Firstly, it was Demon Ox who recommended him. Secondly, it was Dustless's own strength that no one could match. Other than his lack of experience and his short time in New Leon group, he was perfect in almost every aspect. After meeting with the general, Dustless and Demon Ox were arranged to stay. Although there were many demons here, the environment was not bad. It was quiet and secluded. No one disturbed them. That, Geo, is a big problem. In the empty room, Dustless and Demon Ox sat together. He looked at the blooming cherry blossoms outside the window. It was a rare and beautiful scene. As for Demon Ox, he was drinking alone. A cold light flashed in his eyes from time to time. "Don't worry, he won't live for long." Demon Ox put down the wine cup in his hand. A vicious killing intent flashed across his face. He sneered and said, "Not long ago, his personal doctor, Snake Lady, was recruited by me. That guy still dares to go against me. He doesn't know what's good for him. It seems like I don't have to do anything. You will take care of that guy." Dustless stretched and decided to lie on the tatami. He asked, "Did you arrange an assassin beside Nuliang Lu Xiong?" This Demon Ox hesitated for a moment. Then, he squeezed out a helpless smile. "Young Master's guards are all his trusted aides. I don't have any room to interfere. However, I secretly took in the people from the old rat group. They will help find a chance to kill Lu Xiong. You are really smart. I heard that the old rat group has been expelled. Even if they kill Nuliang, Lu Xiong won't suspect us." Dustless couldn't help but give Demon Ox a thumbs up. This guy was brave and smart. He even knew how to plan ahead. No wonder he had such a high position in Nuliang group. Tap, 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 tap. Light footsteps came from outside the door. Dustless and Ghost Ox raised their heads and looked over. What came into their eyes were two beautiful women, Harry Whore and Snow Lady. Ghost Ox frowned and asked, "Did the general order you to come?" The Snow Maiden nodded before glancing at Dustless and saying, "From now on, Master Dustless is a candidate to become the general of the Nuliang organization, so we have to increase the number of guards around him. We'll also take care of his daily needs." "Why would I need a guard?" Dustless chuckled. Does he think I'm an idiot? It was obvious that the general had ulterior motives. You call yourself a guard, but you're actually here to keep an eye on me, right? Ghost Ox felt disdain in his heart. He looked at Hormao and Snow Lady and said expressionlessly, "Both of you can go back. Lord Dustless doesn't need any guards. If he must, then it doesn't matter. Just stay here." Dustless interrupted Bull's spirit. Even if he declined, it would be useless. The general would probably send someone else to be his bodyguard. Both of you can go back first. Help me thank the general. Come back at night. I have something to discuss with Ghost Ox now. Dustless waved his hand. The Snow Maiden and Hormao looked at each other before leaving respectfully. These two chicks are really talented in acting. Seeing how respectful the two of them were, Dustless was speechless. When he met the general previously, the Snow Maiden wanted to freeze him. These two are on the general's side. It's dangerous to keep them around. Ghost Ox frowned and reminded him. The Snow Maiden and Hormao were loyal to the general and Nuliang Luxiong. Of course I know, but what's the use of rejecting them? That old man will play other tricks next time. Seriously, the general is already a few hundred years old. How can an old man like him be so playful? Dustless admired the cherry blossoms dancing in the sky as he complained, "At least there are two women. If there were two demons, that would be terrible. You can go now. I'm going to sleep for a while." After saying that, Dustless closed his eyes. Ghost Ox left tactfully and went to secretly contact Shirtu and Old Rat. After witnessing Dustless's strength, Ghost Ox was completely convinced. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, only the strong could rule everything. A weakling like Nuliang Luxiong was not qualified to be the boss. When night fell, the Snow Maiden and Hormao came again. The two of them woke up Dustless, who was sleeping soundly, and brought lunchboxes. What a strange food. Dustless looked at the dishes on the table. Almost all of them were made with ice. He picked up his chopsticks and tasted them. The taste was not bad. "I didn't expect you to be so good at cooking at such a young age." Dustless gave the Snow Maiden a thumbs up and praised. "Nonsense, cooking is my forte." Hearing that, the Snow Maiden looked at Dustless with a smile. Then, she suddenly remembered that Dustless wanted to take the general's position. Her face instantly turned cold. She snorted and said, "Eat it gratefully. This is your fortune from 8 lifetimes." Oof. Hearing that, Dustless touched his nose awkwardly. This woman was really arrogant. About 10 minutes later, Dustless finished his dinner. He lay lazily for a while and burped. When the two of them were about to leave, Dustless suddenly spoke. "Snow Maiden, you can go. Hormao, stay." The corner of Wu Chen's mouth curled into a wicked smile. Prostitute Mao looked back and suddenly shivered. She wanted to refuse, but she didn't have a suitable excuse. When the general arranged for the two of them to come here, he ordered them to monitor Wu Chen's every move and inquire about his identity and origin. Chapter 7. The place that had just been loosened. This chick suddenly grabbed it again. Wu Chun suddenly shivered. "What are you doing?" Dustless's face twitched. Perhaps she was too nervous, but her strength was a little too much. "Ouch, ouch, ouch. Damn, do you want me to die without any descendants?" I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." Shirley's mouth trembled, and she could not even speak clearly. "His Majesty ordered me to serve you to the best of my ability. This kind of small matter, just leave it to me." Shirley then squeezed out some shower gel and smeared it on his body. She slid it down gently. Dustless was stunned. This was the first time he had met Shirley, and she was already doing something like this. Could it be, "You're mesmerized by me"? Dustless suddenly puffed out his chest and thought narcissistically. Don't move." Shirley cried out awkwardly. Dustless's movement was fine, but she almost lost her grip because of the shower gel. "Really, if you can't get used to it, then refuse. No one forced you to do this." Dustless naturally noticed Shirley's difficulties. She was very unfamiliar with the technique, and it even made Dustless feel a little pain. Perhaps it was because it was her first time bathing someone, and sometimes she could not control her strength well. This painful but happy scene lasted for about 10 minutes. When it was over, Shirley took Dustless to the bedroom to rest. Before she left, she even prepared a dazzling array of snacks. In the king's council chamber. "Old man, why didn't you chase that guy away? You actually let him stay overnight? Is there something wrong with your brain?" Veronica was throwing a tantrum at King Edward, who was sitting on the throne. She was so angry that she was about to vomit blood. Her disrespectful tone didn't sound like she was talking to her father at all. However, King Edward merely stroked his beard. He seemed to be used to Veronica's behavior. The reason she was so angry was that she had also heard that Dustless had stayed overnight. Veronica wanted to kill Dustless immediately, but when she thought of the difference between them, she dismissed that unrealistic thought. If she rashly challenged Dustless, the scene just now might happen again. When she thought of how Dustless humiliated her, Veronica's whole body turned cold, and goosebumps rose all over. Now, this bastard who bullied her was living in her house. This was simply outrageous. "You seem to have a big problem with Dustless, Veronica." King Edward looked suspiciously at Veronica's face and asked curiously, "Do you know him?" Veronica was slightly startled, and then she gave a disdainful glance. "Who knows that kind of guy? Whenever I see him." "No, I feel bad when I hear his name." "But you do. Edwards, you, as the saying goes. No one knows a daughter better than a father, and no one knew Veronica better than him." "Those who offended me are all dead," Veronica said coldly. "I'm just worried that Dustless will harm Sylvia." Veronica snorted coldly. Then, her tone became gentle. Whenever Sylvia was mentioned, Veronica would dote on her with infinite tenderness. "That's true." Hearing Veronica's explanation, King Edward's doubts were relieved. Yes, those who dared to provoke his eldest daughter were all dead. If they were enemies, they would have died long ago. In fact, what King Edward did not know was that Dustless was not Veronica's enemy, but her nemesis. Although I don't know where Dustless came from, I can be sure that he will not harm Sylvia. Absolutely not. King Edward's tone was very serious and very certain. "Why?" Veronica was stunned for a moment. Her father had only met Wu Chun today. Where did he get the confidence to be so certain? Think about it. If he wants to harm Sylvia, is there a need to bring her back? No, there is no need to kill her. Just throw her deep into the mountains and let her live on her own, King Edward explained. So, the possibility of Dustless harming Sylvia is completely non-existent. Keeping him here is actually because of his strength. King Edward's eyes shone. The two empires at the border of the kingdom have wild ambitions against us. The benefits of having a strong military force are self-evident. I heard from Sylvia that Dustless is very strong. He can even fly without a dragon. And most importantly, King Edward exhaled and looked at Veronica excitedly. "This is what Sylvia told me. Dustless and the Dragon Mother seem to be very close. The Dragon Mother even has a favor to ask of Dustless. I plan to ask him to help you." Veronica had the potential to be a dragon breeder, but sadly, when she was baptized, the Dragon Mother despised the girl's fierce eyes and felt that she was not suitable to be a dragon breeder. So that's how it is. Veronica's eyes lit up. She was obviously moved, and her heart raced. But on second thought, what? Asking her to ask that big pervert for help? No way. Veronica waved her hand and left in anger. What dragon breeder, what dragon knight? They're all *T. I, Veronica, am not weak even without Parker. Asking Veronica to ask Dustless for help was more painful than killing her. Chapter 8. Elise bowed again and again, showing her sincerity. She even took out Fat 2 as a thank you gift. Although it was very awkward, Elise had to admit that it was hard on her. It also showed her sincerity. She seemed to be embarrassed to reject him again, but she should forget about asking Dustless to accept her Fat 2. How about this? Dustless stared the nervous Elise again and again. His eyes narrowed into crescents. He chuckled and said, "Micah is the maid of the dean. Sometimes she doesn't have time to serve me, so she goes against me secretly. I'm still short of someone by my side. How about you?" "Sure." Elise nodded without the slightest hesitation. Wu Chun felt strange when he heard that. Didn't this child agree too quickly? "My request is not as simple as you think. To a certain extent, it's a contract of selling yourself. Dustless repeated again. Although the conditions are a little harsh, I don't think it's too much. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. There's always a price to pay for asking for help, right? In this day and age, even monks asked for incense money. Wasn't it normal to ask for favors? Okay, Elise still did not hesitate, but she was secretly laughing in her heart. Her request was very simple. In fact, she wanted Dustless to kill her. Once Elise was dead, the White Leviathan would leave and the crisis would be resolved. If Elise was dead, how could she agree to Dustless's conditions? So she was very puzzled. This guy actually asked for such a condition. Was he retarded? Ow, 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 ow. The White Leviathan sang as it moved forward. All kinds of powerful attacks could not hit it at all. It's useless. This guy's ability is universal repulsion. What can your puny attacks do? Dustless watched silently. In the sky around the Leviathan, there were a few petite figures wandering around. Without a doubt, only D dared to fight the dragon. They were Matsumoto Fukumoto and Lisa Hayaka, Phyllis Crest, Rimizawa, and Ella Liu. 5 of them. Even though they had the absolute advantage in numbers, their attacks were completely useless, as the Leviathan of White's massive body was covered with a layer of transparent air shield. No matter what kind of attacks they launched, they couldn't break through it, and they would even be repelled. Attack together! Mobshin ordered loudly. Instantly, a series of concentrated attacks came from all directions. Boom, boom, boom. Another wave of powerful attacks landed on the Leviathan of White. The layer of energy shield on its skin was constantly exploding, and sparks flew everywhere. However, the interior was still intact. It was useless. Woo, woo, woo. Perhaps the Leviathan of White was tired of playing, and it opened its mouth, revealing its sharp fangs. Ow, ow, ow. A series of ghastly roars rang out as powerful shockwaves swept through Midgar in an unstoppable manner like gales with force of over 100. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. A large number of buildings collapsed once again, and the prosperous Midgar Academy was almost completely turned into ruins. Bang, bang, bang. This storm was so powerful that Mobshin and the others who were entrenched around the Leviathan of White were also affected. They were directly blown away, and their bodies landed heavily on the ground in the distance. Their bones were about to fall apart. Shin, Mobshin, who was recuperating, looked at his sister who had fallen to the ground. His handsome face was distorted. That was his sister. How could he not feel heartache? He looked at the Leviathan of White with extreme hatred. Looking at the massive body, Mobshin felt helpless. In front of Dragon, what could a human do? At least I have to try once. Mobshin's eyes flickered with a cold light. Just as he was about to make a move, the sky suddenly darkened. He looked up subconsciously, and it turned out to be boom, boom, boom. The Leviathan of White's massive claws slammed into the hospital where Mobshin was. The hospital instantly collapsed and turned into a pile of ruins. It seems that it can't be stopped at all. Dustless scratched his head when he saw this. He couldn't help but take out his hands that were always in his trouser pockets. He pointed at the Leviathan of White, turned his head, and said to Elise, "You wait here. I'll go and say hello to that kid." That kid? Elise looked in the direction where Dustless's finger was pointing. It was the huge body of the Leviathan of White. Her pretty face suddenly darkened, and she reprimanded, "Please stop this kind of joke." "Don't." Elise discovered miserably that before she could finish her sentence, Wu Chan had disappeared mysteriously. Only his words were left in the vast and mighty heaven and earth. "Don't forget the promise from before. Once you get rid of that kid, you will be my servant." Elise wanted to cry, but had no tears. She only asked Dustless to kill her. Why would there be so much trouble? Damn it. Is there really no way to stop it? Mobshin got up from the ground with difficulty. Her face was covered with dirt, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. Some parts of her body were also bruised. She was in a very sorry state. However, with the support of her strong will, the child miraculously stood up again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Mobshin waved her hand gently, and several sharp arrows shot at the Leviathan of White. Boom, boom, boom. The fatal arrows were blocked by the transparent barrier on the surface of the dragon before they got close to it. Such a dull attack had no effect at all. It was like a stone sinking into the sea, and it only splashed a few sparks before it was extinguished. Ow! Ow! The Leviathan of White turned its head and roared angrily. A pair of man-eating eyes fell on Moto Fukumoto's head. Its huge body slowly turned around, and its huge forelimbs slowly raised. Even the sky was covered, and it was pitch black. Is this the end? Mob Shin smiled bitterly. There was a trace of reluctance and relief on her bitter face. It was not easy to meet Mob Shin again. Before she had time to talk, the good chat was about to end. Chapter 9. The secret room where Mikoto and Fugaku were talking was torn apart and instantly burst open, turning into a pile of rubble and exposed to the sunlight. Looking straight ahead, the scene of the secret room could be seen at a glance. Uchiha Mikoto was still okay, but Uchiha Fugaku was a different story. Fugaku was lying on the ground with his, but facing the sky. His prestige as a patriarch was completely lost. When the Uchiha clansmen who came to support saw Fugaku's expression, they were stunned and had a strange expression on their faces. Compared with the usual serious patriarch, the contrast was huge. Fugaku hurriedly stood up and looked at the strange expressions of his clansmen. He wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to laugh, just like a cat whose tail was stepped on. Who did this? Get out of here! Fugaku roared like a raging lion. His face was red, and his ferocious eyes were like that of a berserk beast. Anyone who was stared at by Fugaku would feel scared, and their hair would stand up unconsciously. It's been a long time. At this moment, an unusually indifferent and disdainful voice sounded. The childish voice was obviously from the 10-year-old Dustless. Remembering Fugaku's strange posture, Dustless didn't hesitate to add oil to the fire and said, "Worthy of being the patriarch, the real pillar of the Uchiha clan." Dustless looked at Fugaku with admiration. "I'm not as good as you. It turned out to be you little bastard. Did you do this?" Looking at the place where the voice came from, it was Dustless with a smile on his face. Uchiha Fugaku was furious. His rage value was off the charts, and his head was full of #S. Obviously, he was very angry. He wanted to scold the little bastard, but he quickly changed his words because that would be tantamount to scolding himself. Looking at the ruins of the secret room, Fugaku's eyes were full of coldness, and he gritted his teeth. "As you can see," with a chuckle, Wu-chan said indifferently. He immediately looked at Fugaku with a mocking expression. His eyes were cold, and his cold voice spread out. "Fugaku Uchiha, cut the crap. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Is this how you talk to your father who gave birth to you?" Hearing this, Fugaku was furious. He clenched his fists with a dark face, suppressing the fire in his heart. His skin didn't move as he asked Dustless. His voice was so sharp that it made people's scalp numb. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people and the bad reputation of killing his son, he would definitely make Dustless bleed on the spot. "Father?" Dustless dug his ears and pretended to be surprised as he said, "Father? So you still know that you have a son, this kind of thing?" Wu-chan dragged out his voice. Everyone understood the sarcasm in his words. "You." Fugaku's face was pale. He looked gloomily at Dustless. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. After a month, you will participate in the Third World War as a ninja of the Uchiha clan." Fugaku waved his hand with a look of annoyance. As if he could see the tragic death of Dustless in the future, Fugaku grinned. "Don't hate us. There's nothing we can do." The corner of her mouth slightly squirmed, and Mikoto sobbed silently. Obviously, she still loved Dustless very much. Dustless's face was as usual, and he glanced at Mikoto. His dark eyes were locked on Fugaku, and he didn't waver. He already expected this. The relationship between the Uchiha clan and Konoha's higher-ups is well known. Although Fugaku promised to send ninjas to participate in the Third World War, most of them are cannon fodder, most of them are people who have exhausted their talent, and, at the very least, they are trash like Dustless. Who gave you the right to make your own decision? And what if I say no? Then you will die. Fugaku's eyes turned rapidly, and the scarlet-red tomo began to rotate, showing his determination. The cold and chilling murderous aura swept through everyone present like a hurricane, and the scene was silent and extremely depressing. The Uchiha clan members had different expressions, but most of them were like this. The world is like this. The weak should have the consciousness of the weak. Don't try to resist fate, and those who don't have the strength to resist fate will be crushed by the gears of time. Because it's not just the Uchiha clan, it's the same everywhere in the world. Is that so? Hearing this, Dustless just snorted disdainfully. His young but mature face had an unruly smile. It was a kind of eagerness to try. Does this guy want to die? He dares to challenge the patriarch. The Uchiha looked at Dustless's arrogant face, and they were shocked. The strength of the patriarch is naturally second to none in the Uchiha clan, especially in a pure fighting family like the Uchiha clan. Without the strength of the entire Uchiha clan, it's impossible to be the patriarch. Good boy, I was really blind before. I didn't see that you are a traitor. Fugaku cursed, and his face turned green, being challenged by a 10-year-old trash. He is definitely the first patriarch of the Uchiha clan since ancient times. Looking at the angry Fugaku, Dustless didn't know what was going on, and then he looked at Fugaku seriously and said, "A patriarch is so afraid of death. Don't worry. I will just teach you a lesson. I won't kill you." Fugaku. The Uchiha were also speechless. Where did this trash get the confidence to challenge the patriarch? Chapter 10. Isn't that guy a little too sharp? Stacy and Eben Ihue, who were in a different spot, broke out in cold sweat. They stole glances at Dustless from the corner of their eyes, and their hearts were in turmoil. Because in the upcoming open tournament, every student was an enemy, and Dustless was no exception. Both of them knew how strong Dustless was, and so they wanted to work together to deal with him. But this guy, his ability to foresee the future really made them feel ashamed. Maybe it's just a wild guess. Stacy and Eben Ihue glanced at each other, and both of them thought that it was just a blind cat meeting a dead mouse. During the meal, Dustless didn't bother with the two of them. He finished his meal early and left. When he passed by Stacy and Eben Ihue, he gave him a look that said, "Do your best." After lunch, Dustless didn't rush back to the dormitory. If he slept for too long, he would have a headache. Instead, he strolled around the Shatterer Academy, admiring the scenery around him. The Shatterer Academy was indeed one of the top night academies in Japan. It had everything. The landscaping was done quite well, and there were all kinds of entertainment venues on campus. However, Dustless wasn't interested in any of them, and he was bored as he strolled around. "It's that guy, right? I will never forgive you." Looking at the figure in front of her, the white-haired Loli's face flashed with a cold light, and then she silently followed him. After about a few minutes, Dustless walked to a dark and shady place. It was a narrow corner, and there was no one around, and there were no cameras to observe him. "You've been following me for so long. Are you here to avenge your brother, Eben Ihue?" Dustless suddenly stopped. The figure also stopped and quickly hid. "There's no use hiding, Miss Eben Ihue." After calling out the girl's name, the white-haired Loli walked out from the shadows, and her beautiful eyes looked at Dustless unkindly. Ayaya, what a scary gaze. Dustless was unmoved by the girl's ferocious stare. He could tell at a glance that this was the Black Iron Pearl Viper. "You made my brother lose face and was laughed at by so many people. I can't forgive you." The Black Iron Pearl Centipede's body was overflowing with cold air. Even her eyebrows were covered in a layer of cold mist. "Of course I knew you wouldn't let me go, so I chose such a remote place. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if those cameras caught me using spiritual equipment without permission. According to the school rules, you will be expelled," Dustless said calmly. His words made the Black Iron Pearl Centipede's pupils shrink. Could it be that this fellow discovered me long ago and deliberately brought me here? The Black Iron Bead Viper released its spiritual equipment and held a sharp dagger in its hand. It looked at Dustless with great vigilance. Perhaps this was a trap. To be honest, I also want to teach you a lesson. Dustless grinned and said, "Your brother and Stacy plotted against me, so I'm just collecting some interest from his sister. That's not too much, right?" That perverted princess. As if she had some impression of Stacy, the Black Iron Pearl centipede immediately cursed. "I'll deal with you first." Crack, 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 crack. With the Black Iron Pearl centipede as the center, a large amount of ice seeped out from under her feet, freezing the surrounding ground and swallowing Dustless. The ability to control ice. No wonder your relationship with Stacy is so bad. Fire and water are incompatible. Looking at the ice under his feet, Dustless smiled and looked calm. Then, he casually raised his right foot. What is he doing? Not planning to release his intrinsic spiritual equipment? The Black Iron Pearl centipede looked at Dustless in confusion. She couldn't figure out what this guy wanted to do. Was he going to break her ice with one foot? Don't joke around. Actually, what the Black Iron Pearl centipede didn't know was that Dustless didn't have the so-called intrinsic spiritual equipment. The heaven-gathering cloud sword was only imitated by the power of the glint fruit. Bang! The raised right foot suddenly landed on the ground. The ground immediately trembled and a large number of cracks appeared. The spreading ice on the ground cracked and shattered. His physical skills are so strong. Didn't you say this guy was good at using swords and fire? The Black Iron Pearl centipede opened her eyes wide. When she looked at Dustless again, her body suddenly tensed up, because Dustless had disappeared from her sight. Where is he? The Black Iron Pearl centipede looked left and right, looking for Dustless's whereabouts. Full of flaws, little brat. If you participate in a selection like this, you'll be eliminated sooner or later. The cold voice suddenly sounded behind her. The Black Iron Pearl centipede couldn't help but be startled. Then, she turned around and stabbed. Too slow. The Black Iron Pearl centipede was really too slow. Dustless easily caught her snow-white wrist and looked at the young girl with a trace of an evil smile. "Tell me, how should I punish you? You better not mess around." The Black Iron Pearl centipede was so scared that her face turned pale. She quickly thought of something and said, "My father is Eben Yin. You know who he is, right? If you offend me, you'll die." Eben Yin, the head of the International Magician Knight Alliance's Japanese branch, the head of the Eben family, Eben Ihuwei, and Eben Juji's father. His position was high, and even the chairman had to give him some face. But unfortunately, Dustless had always been the kind of person who feared nothing. There was no way to threaten him. If you're scared, then let go. Seeing Dustless hesitate, the Black Iron Pearl centipede smiled. But in the next second, her face turned green. Wu Chen lifted the girl's skirt, revealing her snow-white perky buttocks and fair skin. He couldn't help but stare blankly. "You're so young, yet you're wearing black fat too. What a heavy taste. No wonder you're a brother complex." Then, Dustless raised his hand and mercilessly slapped her. Pop, pop. The burning pain attacked the Black Iron Pearl centipede's mind. She gasped for breath and was about to faint. This guy dared to hit her, but in broad daylight. Chapter 11. 3 days later, Dustless and Snowblast had arrived in another city. This city was often attacked by monsters. So many apartments and buildings were empty. Dustless and Snowblast chose an uninhabited villa as their base of operations. "Lord Dustless, there's news from the Hero Association." Dustless was lazily sprawled on the sofa watching television. Snowblast suddenly walked over with a look of anger and grumbled, "Those bunch of ungrateful bastards. They rejected it, right?" Dustless guessed the answer when he saw Snowblast's enraged look. Dustless got Tornado to inform the Hero Association to cancel the bounty on the tin-tailed dragon-ranked monster. They had just called Snowblast, so it was likely that they had rejected it. Those bunch of bastards are really tired of living. Even Sister is no match for Lord Dustless. What right do they have to say no to Lord Dustless? Snowblast said indignantly. This was a world where strength reigned supreme. The strong could dominate everything as they wished, but the Hero Association appeared to be unconvinced. In this world, There are some things that cannot be resolved with pure strength. Dustless smiled nonchalantly. He was rather relaxed. Regarding the bounty on the 10-tailed dragon-ranked monster, he would cancel it if he could. If he could not, he did not care. At most, I'll beat up any hero I see in the future. I'll beat them until they are afraid. That bunch of people will also be obedient. Immediately following that, Dustless's face suffused a cold arc. By the way, immediately following that, Dustless suddenly changed the topic. He stared at Snowblast and asked, "How's the training I assigned you going?" "I've already begun implementing it." But Snowblast's face suffused a troubled look as she grumbled, "Lord Dustless, aren't you being too harsh? You don't know how to treat a girl well. You're making a girl run 40 kilometers with weights, do 500 push-ups a day, and do all sorts of extreme exercises. With all of this added up, I don't even have time to sleep or rest. And most importantly, all of this added up is too torturous. Not to mention ordinary humans. Even an A-class hero would not be able to withstand such physical training. Now that you mention it, it does seem a little harsh." Dustless stroked his chin and pondered. "You call this similar?" Chue Shui rolled her eyes in annoyance. After living with him for a few days, she already understood Dustless's temper. Although her master had unparalleled strength and was labeled as a dragon-class monster, the Dustless in his daily life was still the kind of person that was easy to get along with. After spending some time with Dustless, Snowchaser's courage had grown. Sometimes, he would even joke with Dustless. "But Chue, do you know where the strong come from? Talent is important, but as the saying goes, diligence can make up for stupidity. The so-called strong are actually made up for by taking advantage of other people's leisure time to train themselves like crazy. If you want to become strong, you have to learn how to endure hardships." Dustless educated Snowchaser with a serious look on his face. At this moment, he really looked like a teacher. Only by constantly pushing yourself to the limit can you break through the limit. "I understand." Snowchaser nodded, but she didn't really understand. Rumble. A shocking explosion came from a certain direction. Dustless and Snowchaser immediately raised their heads. Dustless was already used to this kind of sudden explosion. It happened almost every day. Sometimes, it happened more than 10 times a day. Needless to say, it was probably some strange person causing trouble again, right? Snowchaser. Dustless's eyes fell on Snowchaser. Snowchaser immediately stood up and said seriously, "I understand, Master Dustless." After saying that, Snowchaser walked over and calmly hugged Dustless. Obviously, this was not the first time. Her small hands skillfully locked onto Dustless's body. Then, Dustless's body began to emit a golden light. Dustless instantly turned into a beam of light and disappeared. In the past few days, Dustless had been ordering Snowchaser and all kinds of monsters to fight at high intensity. And now, this temporary target was here again. In the deep pit where the explosion happened, there was a tall monster. Its appearance was very similar to a human's. Its body was covered with strong muscles. The only thing that was quite strange about it was that its skin was blue-black. Furthermore, there were two antenna-like antennae on its forehead. Looking at the huge explosion nearby, it was easy to guess that this monster was not weak. It was the Vaccine Man, who claimed to be the will of the earth. Because it was unhappy with the destruction of the environment, it wanted to destroy the human race. Therefore, as soon as it appeared, the Vaccine Man caused a huge explosion and killed all the nearby humans. "Look at this dirty world and this dirty air, my God, I can't stand it. All of this is caused by those damn humans. They have turned this lovely world into such a mess. They have no value in living in this world." The Vaccine Man took 2 deep breaths of air and tasted it carefully. After that, he couldn't help but vomit. His face was full of disgust and disgust. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, a sharp sound came from the sky. The Vaccine Man couldn't help but look up. It was a beam of light that was quickly approaching. The speed of the beam was extremely fast. It was at least 100 meters away. Boom, boom, boom. After about 10 seconds, the beam of light landed on the ground. It landed right next to the vaccine man. Of course, this was Dustless and Snowchaser. Snowchaser, do you see this guy? You can use him as your opponent. Don't be afraid. This guy who looks strong on the outside is actually just a piece of trash. Dustless looked at the vaccine man and said softly. He didn't care about the latter's angry face at all. You stinky human. Who are you calling a piece of trash that looks strong on the outside? The vaccine man roared with a gaze that could devour a person. His voice was hoarse, as if he had shouted himself hoarse. Chapter 12. Is this girl's body made of water? It's so sensitive. Dustless laughed strangely and leaned close to Veronica's ear. After blowing a mouthful of hot air, he said, "Do you want to play some fun games?" Fun games? She didn't know why, but after hearing these words, Veronica immediately remembered the time when she was hung up and spanked by Dustless. She lost all the face she had accumulated in her life. "You dead pervert, go play by yourself." Without thinking, Veronica refused. "Iron Blood Valkyrie, you're nothing but a coward." Wu Chen muttered. Veronica's heart twitched when she heard that. She had to calm herself down. She only hoped that this jinx would leave quickly. But as the saying goes, good things don't come true. Veronica didn't want to see this happen. "Your father's place is not bad. Tomorrow you go and tell him that I plan to live here for 10 days or half a month." Dustless said while holding his head. Bang! "No, get out of here." Veronica flew into a rage and directly smashed the shower gel bottle. She shouted, "Don't get too carried away. This is the kingdom of Raymond, not your home. Only the royal family lives here." Veronica added, "You are not a royal. You're not even a noble. You're just a commoner. Don't break the rules. Isn't it easy to become an aristocrat?" Wu Chun smiled and didn't care about it. "Becoming a noble isn't easy." Veronica calmed down and explained, "Nobles are usually hereditary or conferred upon those who have made great contributions to the kingdom. Another way is to become a dragon knight." No, these are too troublesome. There's a simpler way," Dustless said with a mysterious smile. Veronica was surprised. "What is it? What did I miss?" "If I marry you, I'll become an aristocrat all of a sudden, and a top-notch one at that." Wu Chen grinned and said, "This is a good thing that benefits me greatly." "In your dreams." Veronica snorted arrogantly. "Even if all the men in the world die, I will never marry you." "That's a pity." Dustless spread out his hands. There was no intense emotional change. "However, it is said that women are the most strange creatures. They don't care about what they get, but they cherish what they don't get. Even a noble princess is no exception." Looking at Dustless's calm appearance, Veronica angrily asked, "What? Do you think I am not worthy of you? What the hell is wrong with your head?" Hearing this, Dustless stared at Veronica like an idiot. Does this chick has amnesia? She just said that all the men in the world die before she would not marry him. And now she asked him if he was worthy of her? Just you wait. When you fall into my hands in the future, Veronica suppressed her anger. She picked up the towel and tore it apart madly, as if it was dustless. "It has been more than 1,000 years, but I still don't understand women's minds." Dustless sighed. He really didn't know whether women were too fickle or he was too stupid. You can solve the rest by yourself. After washing Dustless's upper body, Veronica was about to run away. "Wait, I didn't ask you to go." Dustless stopped Veronica and said, "When you take a bath, you only wash the upper body. Don't you need to wash the legs and feet? Are you kidding me?" Veronica felt that she was about to be driven crazy by Dustless. Men and women are different. If I help you wash there, how can I face others in the future? This guy is too unreasonable. I have said that I am training you. Only by abandoning the so-called shame can a person go further and walk a longer road. Dustless said righteously. Veronica scolded Dustless for being shameless in her heart. She was unwilling to do it. No matter how hard her arm was, it could not resist her thigh in the end. In desperation, Veronica could only come back with a sullen face. She squeezed some shower gel in her hand and helped Dustless wash his lower body with resentment. "Be gentle." Dustless, who had closed his eyes, suddenly stared at her because Veronica touched his most important part. He suddenly scolded her angrily. This is second only to my life. If I break it, you can't afford to pay for it. It was not that Dustless was looking for trouble, but Veronica seemed to be deliberately using a lot of strength. This is the strength of this princess. Looking at Dustless's angry look, Veronica's pretty face had a beautiful smile. After fighting for so long, she could finally hold her head high for once. Is that so? Dustless wasn't angry. He chuckled and said, "Since that's the case, I'd better ask your sister to help me wash it. It's okay that your sister is clumsy. I reckon that Sylvia's methods are gentler." You bastard. Hearing Dustless's words, Veronica was about to jump up. She was so angry that she pointed at Dustless and scolded. How can you do this to a child? Are you shameless? Perverted scum. I think you misunderstood something. I just think that she is younger and weaker. Since you don't know how to do it, what's wrong with finding a younger one to replace you? Dustless defended himself with a glib tongue. After that, he stood up directly and walked to the exit without waiting for Veronica's reaction. Sit down. Thinking that Wu Chun was serious, Veronica roared. I'll just be a little gentler. I'm good at this kind of thing. When she said these words, Veronica's heart was bleeding. This shameless guy was too difficult to deal with. She was completely fooled by him. Chapter 13. I know I'm handsome, but I still feel embarrassed when you stare at me like that. Dustless deliberately made a bashful appearance, but Weaver Thousand Winters seemed to be made of iron. She didn't care at all. Her eyes were still fixed on the cheeks that were close at hand. She knew that her carelessness could lead to Summer of Weaving's crushing defeat. You're the ones who tricked me first, so I won't hold back anymore. Wu Chen looked at Xia with a dim light in his eyes. His eyes blinked slightly. Bang! There was a muffled explosion, and Uchiha, who was flying in the air, was sent flying. It was as if he had been hit by something, and his body fell to the ground. Good chance. Cecilia was stunned for a moment, then opened fire. Countless bullets rained down from the void, all of them aimed at Summer of the Vega. What was that just now? I'm not sure. Was it mechanical failure? It's possible. Didn't I tell you before that Summer of Weaving's white style is a defective product? The spectating students were puzzled. They couldn't figure out why Summer of Weaving was suddenly sent flying. Most of them thought that it was a mechanical failure. Empress Weaver naturally noticed this as well. She turned to stare at Empress Weaver with a gloomy expression. What was going on? Although the white style did have flaws, it was such a coincidence that an accident happened at this time. Vega Thousand Winter found it hard to accept. He looked at Wu Chen again. This guy was smiling with his eyes half squinted. He crossed his legs in a sloppy manner, and his expression was full of ridicule. You didn't do it, did you? Vega Thousand Winter stared at Dustless like she was interrogating a criminal. Huh. Dustless put on an innocent expression. You've been staring at me, haven't you? I didn't do anything. Seems like it. Vega Thousand Winter nodded thoughtfully, then snorted. Although she was worried, she didn't panic. Don't think you can beat Summer like this. Boom, boom, boom. A large number of missiles exploded around First Summer Weaver spot, and black smoke rose into the sky. Many students were extremely worried. Although this was a simulation, a duel was still a duel. Accidents could happen from time to time. What if? However, when the choking black smoke dissipated, everyone finally understood that their worries were unnecessary. Looking closely, Summer of the Weaving Patch had activated a protective barrier, isolating him from the sea of flames. He was safe and sound. You'll never be able to hurt me with something like that, Weaver Summer said in high spirits, as if he had already won. I didn't know there was such a thing. Looks like you guys have already upgraded the white form. You were just waiting for me to fall into your trap. Dustless glanced at Vega Thousand Winter out of the corner of his eye. No wonder she was so calm earlier. But Dustless's eyes silently blinked again, and the sturdy barrier immediately began to emit cracking sounds. Why is this happening? Summer-Spotted Weaver was dumbfounded. He stared blankly at the shattered barrier in front of him. One crack after another was clearly visible. Impossible. That kind of attack couldn't have broken the white form's defense. Vega Thousand Winter stood up, agitated. Her beautiful eyes widened, almost falling out of their sockets. She couldn't hide her shock. Heh heh. Facts speak louder than words. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss, little Thousand Winter. Dustless smiled wretchedly. A loss is a loss. Don't deny it. Oh, and don't forget your promise. It must have been you. Dustless remained silent. Vega Thousand Winter's cold gaze swept over him. You must have used some kind of trick, she said with great certainty. Catch the thief with the dirt. If there's evidence, I'm willing to admit my guilt. I'm a man of my word. Dustless blinked, then said righteously, if you find evidence of me cheating, do as you please. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, Cecilia fired out a few more missiles, all of which exploded around Sasa Uchiha, and the cracked rain shield was instantly torn apart. My hand. Amidst the gunfire, Summer of the Vega's scream could be heard. It sounded like he was in extreme pain. Still not admitting defeat? Does that kid want to die? Dustless's brows twitched. Through the thick black smoke, he could see Summer the Weaving Patch's right hand was burning red. He has a reason why he can't lose. Vega Thousand Winter gritted her teeth. Ridiculous. Daring to trick me, that's how it's going to end. Dustless snorted, his face expressionless. He had no sympathy for Summer the Weaving Patch. The kid usually looked naive and childish, but he was extremely cunning. He had deliberately let him see the white form. At that time, the white form looked ordinary. If they fought, Cecilia would have won. But that wasn't the case. The kid's white form had been secretly upgraded. It was all premeditated. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. A series of cannonballs rumbled from the distant horizon. An IS that had never been seen before barged into the simulation field. This is interesting. The troublemaker is here? Dustless's face turned cold as he stared at the incoming missiles. The target wasn't Cecilia or Summer of the Weaving Patch. It was himself. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Dustless's right foot suddenly glowed. He kicked out, and a thick beam of light covered his right foot. Lightspeed kick. Chapter 14. It wasn't that Dustless was trying to scare her. The ball that Sylvia had obtained already strongly rejected her because she didn't have the talent to become a dragon nurturer. If she didn't communicate with it, there was no guarantee that something would go wrong. You're that kind? Veronica asked suspiciously. Don't tell me you really want my sister. If I have any ideas about her, none of you can stop me. You can just accept it silently. Dustless replied indifferently. Don't feel embarrassed. Being chosen by me is a gift. You should say my name day and night. Hum. At the same time, Dustless's stomach suddenly burst with a dazzling light. Then his stomach suddenly swelled and became strangely bigger. What is this? Veronica looked at Dustless in shock. It was like seeing a ghost. How did his stomach suddenly become so big? She looked at Dustless and saw that he was also shocked. Veronica couldn't help but tease. Don't tell me you're pregnant. Ha ha. A man is actually pregnant. Nothing is funnier than this. Unbridled laughter filled the entire room. Veronica felt that all the resentment she had been suffering recently was vented in an instant. There was nothing more satisfying than this. Oomph. At the same time, a cold voice rippled. Even though it was just a simple word, the large room instantly became cold. It was as if time and space had changed and the stars had moved. It was as if they had suddenly reached the South Pole. Perhaps this was what the saying, one thought to heaven, one thought to hell meant. It's so cold. Veronica was so cold that she was shivering. She looked at Dustless, whose expression changed drastically in an instant. What do you want? Nothing. I just want to teach you a lesson. Dustless said indifferently. Then he added, sometimes, even if it's a joke, when it comes to some sensitive issues, you have to stop before going too far. Do you understand? The simple sentence contained a supreme order. Veronica was so scared that she hurriedly led the way, indicating that she understood. This fiend really couldn't be messed with. One sentence could send people to hell and never come back from it. You can leave, Dustless said slowly. Veronica hurriedly nodded and left. Dustless in this state was indeed a bit terrifying. His body radiated a power that made people tremble. Perhaps this is his true nature. He can destroy the world with a wave of his hand. Veronica's fingertips pierced into the tender flesh of her palm, and the burning pain finally calming her down. In that split second, she had walked back and forth from the gates of hell. If not for his good attitude and timely admitting his mistake, perhaps he would have already been buried by Dustless at this moment. Um. After Veronica left, a ball of light flew out from Dustless's body and floated up slowly. At the same time, Dustless's slightly bloated stomach returned to its original size. If Veronica said that she was pregnant again, it would be awkward. He was a man with dignity. It hatched so quickly. Looking at the floating object of light, Dustless's sharp senses picked up the scent of life. Dustless's own energy fluctuations were also emitted from it. Perhaps it was because it had swallowed his own energy to grow. Ka-ka-ka, ka-ka-ka, ka-ka-ka. On the surface of the cocoon, there was a slight cracking sound. Immediately after, a head of long pink hair pierced out from within. Ka-ka-ka. The cocoon of light was still trembling, but after dozens of seconds, there was no movement at all. It was quite strange. Bastard, what are you looking at? You're just a mere human. Hurry up and save your great master. The life force in the light cocoon couldn't come out no matter how hard it tried. Master, Dustless couldn't help but laugh. He said in annoyance and amusement, I've lived for thousands of years. You're the first one who dared to make me call you master. Humph, I came out of your body. If I'm not your master, then who am I? The arrogant voice sounded again. It ordered arrogantly, You're just a mere human. You should obey our great dragon clan. The girl in the light cocoon was obviously a pure racist. The dragon clan was supreme. If that's the case, then come out yourself, my master. Dustless replied in a strange tone. Then he lazily closed his eyes. You, audacious human. How dare you disobey the orders of your master? The life force in the light cocoon questioned angrily. Dustless didn't bother to respond. The moment he heard the voice, Dustless knew who it was. His heart was as clear as a mirror. It was almost exactly the same as Nobby's voice. The only difference was that it was slightly younger. Therefore, it was obvious who it was, Ike. It was Yaksu Blake's fall. However, he was now in Dustless's hands. Chapter 15. The night passed peacefully. The next morning, when Dustless went to class as usual, there was already a crowd outside the classroom. Out of curiosity, he walked over. After a few steps, he heard a thunderous roar. Kieran, you useless idiot. The ear-piercing roar could be heard from over 100 meters away. Wu Chen's face darkened. He knew it was Dating-Chi Lin's uncle from the voice alone. Calling his own niece an idiot in front of so many people. Was this something that an elder could do? Useless trash. What's the point of teaming up with a brat like him? Koichiro spat while Kieran kept her head down. When he heard that Kota Kieran had decided to team up with Shasha Miyazaki for the Star Martial Arts Festival, Kota Koichiro was furious. If Shasha Miyazaki was one of the top 12, it would be fine, but Shasha Miyazaki was not on the list. Therefore, in his opinion, this was a stupid move. You incompetent little brat. Enraged, Koichiro raised his hand and looked at Kota Kieran as if she was his enemy. She closed her eyes in fear. You've got guts. An extremely cold voice came from the crowd. When it reached Koichiro's ears, he felt as if he was being stared at by the god of death. He immediately shuddered. Looking back, Kata Koichiro immediately saw Wu Chun. He snorted and said, I'm teaching my niece a lesson. What does that have to do with you? Your niece? Dustless sneered. Isn't it more appropriate to call her a prop? Kieran looked at Koichiro after hearing Dustless's words. Koichiro's face twitched. He didn't dare look at Kota Kieran in the eye. His gaze was erratic, giving off the feeling that he was guilty. Kieran, let's go. Katu Koichiro coldly snorted and turned to leave. What? Kieran, are you deaf? Kata Koichiro turned his head and saw the young lady standing there motionlessly. He immediately reprimanded. Or do you want me to invite you? Hurry up and disappear before I get angry. Otherwise, I might throw you out. Dustless suddenly interrupted. Koichiro shuddered. He was sure that this bastard would do as he said. Don't you like to meddle in other people's business too much? Kata Koichiro's old face was so gloomy that water was about to drip out. Yeah, can you bite me? Dustless smiled and asked. Hearing this, Kota Koichiro was so angry that his face flushed red. The blood in his lungs rolled, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Since he couldn't beat them, what could Katu Koichiro do? Helplessly, he could only leave in a huff. There are some things that you need to judge based on your own subjective will. You don't have to pursue success. You just need to have a clear conscience and make sure that you won't regret it in the future. Wu Chun rubbed doubting Qi Lin's head and said slowly, Go to class. Thank you. Kieran looked at Dustless gratefully. Otherwise, she would have slapped him again. It's nothing. Dustless smiled. He didn't care too much. A weak person like him wouldn't dare to take revenge even if he was given 100 guts. In a laboratory of the Alicante Research Institute, two young girls frowned as they stared at the scene on the screen, showing a cautious expression at the same time. Honesta, where did this new teacher come from? I've never heard of him before. Where did Claudia Enfield find such a strong person? A young girl with healthy wheat-colored skin and shoulder-length blonde hair asked. I'm not sure. I've never heard of him either. But that's not important. Camilla, did you notice that the energy that kid is using is very strange? It doesn't seem to be astral energy. The beautiful girl called Ainesta's eyes glowed as she muttered, Hee, interesting, interesting. These two people were Ainesta and Camilla from the Alicante Research Institute. Both of them were inextricably linked to the hiring of Silas Norman. Looks like we'll have to adjust our mimicry to guard against this guy. If he participates in the Astral Warrior Festival, we'll lose miserably. Camilla was deep in thought. It's useless. Ainesta shook her head. Do you think Aldi and Rimsey alone can beat that guy? Camilla said unhappily. She felt that Ainesta was overconfident. That's not what I meant. Look at this data. Ainesta suddenly pointed at the screen. A bunch of data appeared there. She explained solemnly. It's not that I don't want to modify it. Even if we take out the perfect material to create the mimicry, we still won't be able to resist that guy's attack. To put it simply, it wasn't that Ainesta didn't want to modify it. The tragedy was that no matter how they modified it, it seemed that they couldn't resist the power of Dustless Void Flash. The metal that they used as experimental materials couldn't withstand it at all. The video that was shown on the screen just now was the scene where Dustless used Void Flash to destroy Silas Norman's mechanical puppets. Ladies, Claudia from the Starguide Academy is here. Someone suddenly reported outside the lab. The two girls rubbed their heads. Although they were sure that the fact that they sent someone to ambush the Starguide Academy would be exposed sooner or later, it came too quickly, especially when the target was Claudia, who was difficult to deal with and extremely cunning. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 16. You bastard, can't you change your conditions? Yu Shi and Hu Tao looked at each other. Looking at the pitiful state of you, they had the same opinion that they should never sign the so-called master-servant contract. It was too dangerous. If they had the slightest thought of disobeying Dustless, the curse would be activated. It was a cheat-like ability that could not be avoided. You don't want to sign the contract? That's fine too, but buzz, buzz, buzz. Dustless's fingertips emitted a destructive light as he aimed at Hu Tao's head. If I use this move, your sister's head will have a hole. Do you want to try? Little girl, you're so despicable. Yushi's cheeks twitched as she stared at Dustless furiously. Why didn't this guy have any morals and restraint as a strong person? He threatened her sister without saying anything. He was so shameless. What Dustless? Change his name to Shameless. It sounded more appropriate. I'll sign it. Yushi gritted her teeth and was forced to agree. What about you? Dustless's gaze then fell on Hu Tao's face. He pointed the light at Yu Shi and threatened with a smile. If you don't sign the contract, I won't make things difficult for you. However, I'll leave a big hole in your sister's beautiful face. The two sisters heard this and cursed in their hearts. This despicable and shameless bastard was too shameless. I promise you, Hu Tao had no choice but to compromise. She had no choice but to lower her head. The two sisters had no choice but to follow Dustless's lead. In the end, with Wan Lia's help, Hu Tao and She signed a master-servant contract and became Dustless's servants. From then on, Dustless lived an extremely corrupt life. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was evening. At this moment, Dustless was wearing pajamas and lying lazily on the sofa. His head was resting on Hu Tao's ample cleavage. As for Yushi, she was in charge of massaging his legs. Her technique was perfect, as if she had received professional training. Her sister, Hu Tao, was peeling fruits and feeding them to Dustless one by one. The three ladies were so angry that they gritted their teeth, but they could not do anything. Dustless's orders were like the orders of God to them. If they disobeyed even the slightest thought, the evil curse would be activated and they would suffer unspeakable suffering. Aya, it seems like we have guests. Wu Chen's squinted eyes suddenly opened and looked out of the window. He clearly felt a strange aura quietly approaching, and the hiding technique was very sophisticated. At first glance, he knew it belonged to the type of powerhouse. Wan Lia, go and welcome the guests outside. Remember to be polite to the ladies. Dustless glanced at Wan Lia and then leisurely closed his eyes. As for Wan Lia, she looked at Dustless suspiciously. Someone was here? She did not notice it at all and then nodded silently. Who is it? Could it be? Hu Tao and Yushi looked at each other. Their cheeks were filled with joy. Could it be that someone from the brave tribe had come to rescue them? Stop dreaming. No matter who it is, it can't be the hero tribe. Dustless bluntly attacked the two sisters and said coldly, that person should be a woman, and she is extremely powerful. I don't think she is any weaker than Dong Chang's son. Does your brave tribe have someone like that? Hearing this, Hu Tao and she were greatly disappointed. Their beautiful eyes were replaced by despair. That's not right. How did you know it was a woman? Zhao looked at Dustless in confusion. This guy had been training them the whole afternoon and did not go out. How did he know that the person who ambushed them was a woman? Humph, a group of little kids. You won't understand even if I tell you. It has something to do with personal experience. Dustless said very confidently, looking at the ceiling comfortably, I have been in contact with too many women in my life, more than the number of meals you have eaten. Understand? I can tell a man or a woman just by intuition. You only know how to brag. Hu Tao snorted lightly, expressing 100% disbelief. Hearing this, Dustless smiled. He was fooling the three women, but the person who came was indeed a woman. Although observation hockey can't distinguish the appearance of a human, the difference between the figure of a man and a woman can still be felt. This person is a woman, and through the perception of observation hockey, Dustless also knows that her chest is very big, even bigger than Nere's Kodo's. She is strong and has a good figure. It shouldn't be her, right? In Dustless's mind, a beautiful woman wearing glasses and a white coat immediately popped up. Creak! Outside the bedroom, suddenly there was the sound of high-heeled shoes twisting. Dustless, Hu Tao, Yuki, and Yuki all looked over. When they saw the person who came, both Yuki and Yuki were stunned and immediately exclaimed, Hasegawa-sensei? The person who was brought in by Wan Lia is the healthcare teacher of Yuki and Yuki's school, Hasegawa. Sure enough, it's her. Is she here for revenge? Dustless's eyes flashed, and he closed his eyes again leisurely. I thought you would come in directly, but I didn't expect you to be so polite. Since you're not here to fight, sit down by yourself. Hasegawa's beautiful eyes looked at Dustless, seeing this guy holding left and right, living A.G. O. D-like life, and said indifferently, more lustful and frivolous than I thought. You are really a pervert. He, lustful? Hearing this, Dustless laughed. Although he signed a master-servant contract, he didn't force the women to do anything excessive. How can he be related to perverts? Who are you here for? Dongcheng's son? Or Yuki and Yuki? Dustless asked and didn't hide it, saying bluntly, if it's for Dongcheng's son, then I'm sorry, that kid is dead. If it's for Yuki and Yuki, I'm very sorry. They are now my servants. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless felt an amazing hostility locked on him. Looking at the source, Hasegawa's beautiful eyes exuded a substantial chill, like a long knife stabbing at him. There was a light floating behind Hasegawa, and the terrible magic could even distort time and space. Even if there was no magic leakage, the whole house had begun to creak and could collapse at any time. So strong. Yuki and Yuki's faces changed greatly, looking at Hasegawa in fear. This female sensei, who had always been gentle, was definitely a ruthless character. Under the deterrence of this momentum, they felt that they could die at any time, as if there was a dangerous knife hanging on their necks, which could end them at any time. Only Dustless was unmoved. He looked at Hasegawa for a moment with no expression, and his dark eyes exuded an ominous feeling. The so-called God is only at this level? If you continue to behave atrociously, then I really can't forgive you. Then, Dustless broke out a more oppressive momentum, like a tsunami rushing to Hasegawa. Pucci! Hasegawa's face changed greatly. The moment she was covered by the supreme majesty, her internal organs trembled, almost crushing her. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and her face was as pale as paper. Chapter 17. What do you mean? Just say it. Ulysses frowned. She could feel that Dustless was implying something. Since this guy pointed out their weakness, he should be able to come up with a feasible solution. It's very simple. Your usage of Star Force is too simple. It can be expanded. Of course, it's not just you. The whole world is the same. Dustless's words stunned the three girls. Isn't the so-called Star Force used for combat? What's the use of it? Wang. At the same time, a wisp of golden light emerged from Wu Chen's fingertips. It was like liquid gold, and it was swimming around his fingertips. What is this? It doesn't look like Star Force. The three women exclaimed in unison. They looked at Wu Chen with eyes full of flowing lights. This guy was far more amazing than they had imagined. What they saw before was just the tip of the iceberg. This is chakra, Dustless said honestly. He looked at the three girls and slowly explained. Of course, you can also think of it as your own Star Force. Anyway, it has the same effect. Do you know that chakra has many uses? In addition to using ninjutsu, it can also stimulate the body and stimulate the cell activation. Your defense and speed will be greatly improved. The three girls were not stupid. Their eyes suddenly lit up. Dustless, Sensei is saying that Star Force can be used in this way? Among the three of them, the most excited one was Daring Qilin because she was the most embarrassed one. She didn't have her own Huang family armament, and she had to rely on her excellent swordsmanship to win the battle. Her future achievements were pitiful. What Wu Chen said just now was equivalent to pointing out a great path to heaven for her. But can our Star Force really train the body like your chakra? Shasha Miyazaki looked at Dustless suspiciously. She felt that it was strange and unbelievable. Using the power of the stars to activate cells was something that had never been heard of before. It could be considered a fantasy. Of course. Dustless nodded. What he just said was actually the fourth Reikage chakra mode. It wasn't groundless. No matter what kind of energy it is, there are many ways of using it that can be expanded. After saying that, Dustless's body emitted a blue light that twirled around his fingertips. The ocean-like color was dreamy and illusory. This is spiritual pressure. It can also train the body's cells, Dustless explained. These words made the three women happy. They looked at each other, and the joy in their eyes was clearly visible. They looked at the person in front of them and felt that he was as unfathomable as the sea. They had to admit that Dustless had opened a brand new door for them. All right, you guys can go back and figure out yourselves. That's all I can say. Dustless waved his hand and ordered them to leave. He didn't have anything like star power, so he could only enlighten the three of them. Qilin, stay. Dustless added. Her. Yulis and Shasha Gongsha Yi had a strange look on their faces. They exchanged glances with each other. Could it be that the two of them had an affair? I want to stay too, Euless said stubbornly. Dustless rolled his eyes and asked snappily, You're staying? What's the matter? Can I? Aren't you our teacher? If you want to teach, you should teach us together. Do you want to keep it to yourself? Euless looked at Dustless with burning eyes. Sha Gong Sha Yi also nodded lightly, as if she was determined to follow him. You two are really long-winded. Dustless didn't bother with the two and directly said to Kirin, Don't worry about them. Come with me. Dustless promised to teach Kirin personally, so he wouldn't lie to him. I'm sorry, two senpais. Doubting Qilin bowed slightly to the two and then followed Dustless. These two bastards. Euless stomped her foot angrily. She looked at the two leaving and felt inexplicably unhappy. All this time, Euless had naively thought that Dustless cared about her. After all, he had saved her time and time again, so she had developed an indescribable dependence on Dustless. But today, she realized that in Dustless's heart, she was just an ordinary student. There was no difference. It was Wu Chen's duty to save Yuli's in the past. After all, as her mentor, Wu Chen couldn't just watch as a student was killed. Then, Senpai Dustless, won't the two senpais be angry? Kirin, who was weak and kind, asked worriedly. Angry? You think too much. That kid wanted to kill me before. Dustless shook his head indifferently. There was nothing between them. It was just an ordinary teacher-student relationship. Dustless then said to Kirin, Show me your swordsmanship. Treat me as an enemy and attack me with all your might. After hearing Dustless's words, Kirin naturally didn't hold back. She unsheathed her tachi and attacked with an extremely tricky swordsmanship. Sky Mist Rindu had quietly left the Star Guide Academy. Who wants to see me? I don't know anyone. Sky Mist Rhinesoul was wearing a thick robe, revealing only his face. His face was filled with endless doubt. He was sitting alone in a quiet coffee shop. He was surrounded by unfamiliar faces, and he didn't recognize any of them. Just yesterday, Sky Mist Rindu suddenly received a letter. There was no signature, only an invitation to meet him. At first, Sky Mist Rindu wanted to refuse, but in the end, the letter said, If you want to know about your sister, Sky Mist Rindu. Sky Mist Rindu's heart was hooked by this sentence. That was why he sneaked out to meet the letter. I didn't expect you to be so punctual. A calm voice suddenly resounded in Sky Mist Rindu's ears. This voice was extremely calm, as if it had already expected that Sky Mist Rindu would show up. The voice was very calm and relaxed. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 18. Haha, that incestuous woman is finished this time. You won't go easy on her, right? Stacy laughed exaggeratedly while holding her stomach. She rolled around beside Dustless without a care for her image. Of course. Dustless answered with certainty. They were unrelated, so why would he go easy on her? Hee hee. When the time comes, you must do your best and teach that incestuous woman a lesson for me. Stacy winked at Dustless. She didn't even need to be told to massage Dustless's feet to relax. It wasn't hard to see that Stacy had a lot of resentment towards Black Iron Pearl. Are you hungry? Do you need this princess to personally cook some delicious food for you as a reward? Stacy's beautiful eyes flickered with a strange luster. Her delicate face was almost touching Dustless's face. A princess cooking for me? I really can't afford it. You don't have to be nosy. Go do what you need to do. I need a rest. Dustless waved his hand and ordered Stacy to leave. Then have a good rest. When night comes, this princess will let you taste my cooking. Stacy skipped away like a happy elf. She's really hopeless. Looking at the girl leaving, Dustless opened his eyes. Just as he was about to fall asleep, his phone rang. Dustless couldn't help but look at it. It was a text message from the chairman. The content was very simple, asking to meet him. That woman, we just met. Why is she looking for me again? After complaining, Dustless put on his clothes, jumped out of the window, and went straight to the chairman's office. At this moment, there was a middle-aged man in a suit in the chairman's office. This person looked old-fashioned. His facial features were similar to Black Iron Pearl, but his temperament was much more mature. Just by sitting there, he didn't need to release his aura to make people feel a heavy pressure. This kind of person, at first glance, had been trained in a high position for a long time. He had a powerful aura. It was certain that this person was either rich or noble. Creak, the office door was gently pushed open, and Dustless walked in. He couldn't help but frown. Didn't that woman ask me to meet her? But he himself disappeared. Dustless was about to turn around and leave when a middle-aged man, sitting on the sofa, opened his mouth. "Young man, are you going to ignore me?" His voice was as calm as an ancient well, devoid of any emotion. "Young man?" Dustless glanced at this person from the corner of his eyes. After examining him for a moment, he said coldly, "No matter who you are, watch your tone." Wu Chen's real age was more than enough to be his ancestor. Sure enough, it's just as the chairman of Xingong Temple said. You're unruly. Although you look frivolous on the surface, you're actually more arrogant than anyone else. The man in the suit on the sofa did not get angry. He introduced himself politely. "My name is Eben Yan. I'm Eben Yan's father." "I heard that you had some conflict with Eben Yan." "Sorry." Hearing this, Dustless's expression eased a little. He asked directly, "Did you ask the chairman to call me here? We don't seem to know each other, and to some extent, we're quasi-enemies." After all, Dustless didn't have a good relationship with Eben Yin and Ebony Hui. "You're exaggerating. There's no such thing as an enemy." Eben Yin smiled and said rather gently, "I heard that your opponent tomorrow is Eben Yin." "That's right." Dustless nodded and then added, "If you want me to lose to her, then forget it." Hei Tian's expression froze. He took a deep breath and said, "To tell you the truth, I've always thought highly of Zhu Xian. If you eliminate her in the first round, wouldn't that mean that you can't accept it? Our Eben family is a famous family in Japan. If people know about it, we'll lose face. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame her bad luck." Dustless said coldly. He had already understood Eben Yan's intention. He probably wanted him to go easy on Eben Yan. It was a beautiful idea, but it was absolutely impossible. Because once Dustless went easy on Eben Yan, it meant that he would lose. Although Dustless didn't care about the final result, he wanted to crush Eben Yihui's dignity in front of everyone. How could he lose to Eben Yan? Absolutely not. "I heard that you seem to have a grudge against Yihui." Eben Yan looked at Dustless with burning eyes and suggested, "I have a suggestion. Why don't you listen to it? I can use my power to make Yihui lose face and even be kicked out of this school. The premise is that you have to lose to Eben Yan and let her participate in the 7 Stars Sword Dance Festival as the representative of Shattering Military Academy." Eben Yan's eyes were shining with a strange light, like the bright moon. It seemed that he was sure that Dustless would agree. "Are you serious?" Dustless stared straight at Eben Yan. His tone was emotionless. "Of course, I'm serious. Why don't I tell you directly? I've been making things difficult for Yihui to graduate, but that kid's temper is too stubborn. He won't listen to me." Eben Yan said helplessly, "Although your conditions are very attractive, my answer is, stop dreaming." Dustless squeezed out a sneer and said disdainfully, "You think that without you, I can't make him lose face? Hilarious. Do I need to cooperate with someone like you?" After that, Dustless left, leaving Eben Yan with a pale face. He clenched his fists. He didn't expect that Dustless would reject such a generous offer. Chapter 19. Where's that demon? Dustless asked Kanna. "You're willing to help me take care of it?" Kanna had an excited expression before she said in a troubled manner, "I don't know, but every time I sleep, he'll appear." How about I... Kanna's face was currently red as she stuttered, as if she had something difficult to say. She was also embarrassed. "If you have something to say, just say it," Dustless said in an extremely magnanimous manner. "How about I sleep at your place tonight? Or, how about you sleep at my place? That way, you might be able to see that mirror demon." Kanna lowered her head in embarrassment after saying this. It was quite difficult for a girl to make such a request. "I hope you can understand. I had no other choice." Not only did that demon keep harassing me, he even threatened my parents and caused them to be hospitalized. I can't forgive him for that. Kana raised her head and looked resolutely at Dustless. Her eyes were shining brightly. Even if she knew that she was dancing with the devil, she was still willing to give it a try. Your courage is commendable. You clearly know that we're all demons, yet you still dared to make such a request. Aren't you afraid that you're inviting a wolf into your home? No, you're currently in a wolf's den. We're all demons. Dustless revealed his 10 black tails right after he finished speaking. His tails were swaying eerily like pythons, causing Kana to uncontrollably shiver. I know, but I have no other choice. Kana chuckled wryly as she explained. The reason why I believe in you is because Nuyong-san saved me once when I was young. Ever since then, I've felt that there really are demons in this world, but there are also good and bad demons. Just like humans, if there are bad demons, there will also be good demons. There are also good demons and bad demons. In other words, you're treating us as good demons? Since that's what you think, I'll be a good demon as well. Why don't you sleep at my place tonight? If that mirror demon really does appear, I'll destroy him. Dustless's eyes flashed coldly. Thank you for your generosity. Hearing this, Parent Kana repeatedly bowed to Dustless in thanks. She didn't need anyone else to be polite. She walked over to the bedroom next to the cherry blossom tree. After entering the room, the young girl looked around like a curious baby. She even calmly picked up some pastries in the room and began to eat them. These were all made by the Snow Maidens, and they were extremely delicious. Are all humans so bold these days? It's fine if she's not afraid when she's in a monster's house, but she's even eating that thing casually. Isn't she afraid that it's a pastry made from human brains? Dustless commented in confusion. He carefully observed Kana's expression, which was natural and casual. She didn't seem afraid at all. Didn't she just say that she's treating us like good demons? This human girl is truly a strange one. The hairy prostitute blinked her beautiful eyes as she looked at Kana's parents with interest. I hope it won't be too boring tonight. Dustless once again laid down on prostitute Mao's jade-like legs. It was still early, so he decided to take a nap. It's been so long. Why hasn't she come out yet? A petite girl had an anxious expression as she paced back and forth in front of Nuyong Group's main entrance. She was none other than Yuro Hanacoin. After learning of Lu Xiong Nuyong's identity, she had been secretly observing Nuyong Group. In the process of doing so, she coincidentally saw Kana enter Nuyong Group. She directly entered Nuyong Group, and Yuro Hanacoin didn't even have a chance to stop her. That was because Nuyong Group was nearby. If Yuro Hanacoin stood up at this time, the demons in Nuyong Group would know that someone was watching them, and she would be implicated. That was why Yuro Hanacoin could only watch as Kana entered Nuyong Group. I'll sneak in when it's dark. Yuro Hanacoin secretly decided that Nuyong Group was heavily guarded right now. Sneaking in would be suicide. The wait was incredibly long. Yuro Hanacoin snuck in a Nuyong Group before it was even dark. She went door to door to search for Kana's whereabouts. Could she have been eaten by one of those crazy demons? After searching for more than 1.5 hours, Yuro Hanacoin was gradually getting impatient. She had searched most of the rooms, but there was no one there. There's only one room left. Yuro Hanacoin was rather absent-minded as she looked at the closed sliding door next to the cherry blossom tree. She was quite familiar with that place. Last time, she met Dustless here. However, Yuro Hanacoin found it difficult to accept that this gentle man, who sometimes seemed like a scholar, was actually a demon. It was highly likely that he was a high-level member of Nuyong Group. Let's go take a look. Yuro Hanacoin quietly approached with light steps. She was as light as a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, making it difficult for anyone to notice her. Asterisk knock knock knock. Asterisk Yuro Hanacoin lightly knocked on the sliding door a few times. After more than 10 seconds of silence, she smiled faintly and thought to herself, very good, there's no one here. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk Yuro Hanacoin didn't even think about it as she directly opened the sliding door. However, the scene that greeted her stunned her. This is... What exactly are you guys doing? Euro Hanacoin looked around and saw that Dustless was leaning over the table and drinking tea. Kana was sleeping right next to him. Her sleeping face was incredibly sweet and cute. What shocked Euro the most was that Kana was even snoring, and there was even saliva dripping out of her mouth. Euro Hanacoin's worldview was instantly destroyed. Is this still the dignified and beautiful Kana from before? There's a powerful demon right next to you. You're sleeping so soundly that you don't even know if you're going to be eaten. Euro, don't make such an exaggerated expression. The night is still young. Come sit down and drink some tea with me. Dustless pointed at the seat across from him and smiled faintly. His expression was calm, as if he was looking at one of his own. Chapter 20. The raging fire in the center of the arena was unstoppable. It filled the entire arena, including Black Iron Centipede. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Black Iron Centipede kept cursing. She tried to use ice magic to force the fire away, but the temperature was too high. The water that leaked out of her body evaporated immediately. You lost. Wu Chen's emotionless voice resounded through the audience. He said faintly, "Your nickname is Deep Sea Witch. Most of the moves you use are water. You have no chance of winning in front of this flame." Dustless's tone was as cold as a death sentence. Black Iron Centipede's pretty face turned pale. Water could suppress fire, but fire could also suppress water. Dustless's fire skills were obviously better, and Black Iron Centipede was suppressed. I admit defeat. Black Iron Centipede gritted her teeth and admitted defeat reluctantly. She had no choice but to admit defeat. The fire around her was like a cage. Black Iron Centipede couldn't move an inch, and her water moves would be evaporated immediately. So boring. After the referee announced the winner, Dustless left alone. The next match was between Eben and Kirihara Shizuki, but it seemed that he would have to wait until the afternoon. Dustless wasn't interested in watching. It would probably be like the original work. Eben would be beaten up, and then Kirihara Shizuki would be killed. There was no one in the hallway of the dorm. Dustless put his hands behind his head and hummed along the way. Tap, 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 tap. A figure tailed behind Dustless like a thief, hiding here and there. He had been following him closely. Strange, where is he? After turning a corner, the girl couldn't help but look around. To her surprise, Dustless had disappeared from the face of the earth. Are you following me? The space beside the girl twisted, and Dustless mysteriously appeared. Are you a human or a ghost? The girl was so scared that she kept backing away. Dustless's strange appearance really gave her a shock. If you're a ghost, then you're dead. Dustless replied indifferently. He stared at the girl's fair face and asked, I ace, right? You know me? The girl's eyes widened slightly. No, I don't. Dustless simply responded and then said bluntly, but there are only two kinds of people who follow me. They either want to kill me, or they have something to ask of me. You should belong to the second kind, right? Iace's lips twitched when she heard this. Flames of anger flickered in her eyes. She gritted her teeth and suddenly knelt down. I hope you can help me. I'm willing to give up everything for this. Why don't you get up first? A girl suddenly kneeling down. People might think I'm a bully. Dustless patted Iace's shoulder, and she slowly stood up. In fact, even if Iace didn't say anything, Dustless knew her motive. He asked, You want me to increase your strength, right? To be honest, I do have a way to increase your strength, but it won't do you any good. You're a genius in the way of the sword. As long as you practice diligently, you'll surpass your enemies sooner or later. But I can't wait anymore. Iace's face was full of despair. I want to stand out in this competition, but I can't do it with my strength. But I have no obligation to help you. Dustless shook his head and refused. He wasn't a bodhisattva. Iace was speechless. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the sky. She didn't have any power or influence, so there was nothing she could do with Dustless. I'll be yours from now on. As if she was really forced to a dead end. Iace's face was red as she threw caution to the wind. She nervously said, I'll promise you anything including those perverted things. Perverted things? Do I look like the kind of person who can't satisfy his desires? Dustless touched his cheeks. His skin was white and lustrous, and he looked like a god. He didn't look like a perverted uncle at all. He immediately rolled his eyes and lightly scratched the girl's nose. Dustless knew about IA's situation. In order to protect her father's foundation, she was really going all out. She didn't even hesitate to dance with the devil. It's not as hard as you think. I'll give you a discount. You just have to do one thing for me. Dustless waved at Ice. The girl immediately leaned her ear closer. That's simple? After a while, Ice looked at Dustless in surprise. Simple? You're too naive. Don't just look at the surface of things. Dustless shook his finger and reminded her with a serious expression. Remember, don't get caught. Otherwise, you might lose your life. Okay, you can go now. Remember to be careful. Dustless waved his hand. Ice left quietly. This girl is really naive. Isn't she afraid that I'm tricking her? Dustless looked at the departing Ice in a daze. He then went back to rest. It was almost evening. Dustless woke up from his deep sleep. His stomach was growling, and there were no snacks in the fridge. Winner, Kirihara Shizumi. The sudden announcement spread to every corner of the school. Dustless, who was about to go to the cafeteria to eat, was stunned. Damn, is there something wrong with my ears this time? Kirihara Shizumi, that brat won. That's not right. I remembered that Eben Ichiro won. Dustless looked in the direction of the arena. He immediately turned into a beam of light and rushed over. He clearly remembered that in the original story, Eben Ichiro was beaten up violently. Later, his small universe erupted, and he successfully counterattacked and defeated Kirihara Shizumi. But this time, with this kind of change, Dustless was wondering if he should go and finish him off. After all, that brat lost. He wouldn't meet him in the next match. When he arrived at the arena, Dustless looked at the center of the arena. There was a bloody corpse lying there. It was Eben Ichiro. Dustless quickly spread his observation hockey. After a while, he frowned. This brat's heartbeat was already gone. F*CK. I'll let you live because I wanted to ruin your reputation and then kill you. Now you're dead in advance. Dustless was on the verge of exploding. Looking at Kirihara Shizuki, who was flaunting his prowess in the field, he couldn't wait to give him a few slaps. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21. Bang, boom, boom, boom. The power of Snowblast Punch was not bad. That seemingly weak fist exploded with a powerful energy wave and sent Mosquito Girl flying into the sky. Crack! That sharp and steel-like stinger also broke with a snap. This? Mosquito Girl looked at Snowblast in surprise. This woman had such a physical skill. Such powerful strength was not something a woman could possess. Furthermore, it was displayed by a human. Mosquito Girl was indeed shocked. Oomph. Snowblast snorted arrogantly. After following Dustless for a while, she had to go through all kinds of crazy, hellish training every day. Although there was still a long way to go before she could break through the limiter, her physical fitness had improved tremendously. It was a world of difference from before. Have fun with her, Snowblast. Dustless picked up a blade of grass from somewhere and held it in his mouth. His expression was frivolous, as if he already knew the result. Go to hell, human! The enraged Mosquito Girl turned and charged at Snowblast. The two of them were soon engaged in a fierce battle. Their attacks were exchanged, and both wanted to kill the other. Bang, bang, bang. Boom, boom, boom. Ka, ka, ka. Not long after, a series of fierce battles began. The sound of explosions could be heard everywhere. Mosquito Girl was humiliated by her injury, so she used all of her strength to fight. Snowstorm also used all of his strength. If it was in the past, Snowflake would definitely be defeated by Mosquito Girl. He might even be killed instantly. After all, Mosquito Girl's strength was not bad. In the past, Snowflake was only the number 1 in B class. However, after following Dustless for a while, he did not give much advice on abilities. However, when it came to physical skills, Dustless gave crucial advice. Snowblast also increased her physical fitness, which was why she was able to suppress Mosquito Girl. Snowblast's explosive power was not any weaker than some strange people. Boom, boom, boom. The fierce battle continued. Although both sides won and lost, Snowblast also had wounds on her body. However, Mosquito Girl was even worse. Her left arm was broken and one of her eyes was blinded. Other than that, there were other injuries on her body. Overall, Snowblast still had the upper hand. Rumble. There was another deafening explosion. Snowstorm's attack was effective again. Mosquito Girl was blown away. Her body smashed into a 20-story building. She spat out a lot of blood and pain. The building collapsed, and Mosquito Girl was buried under the rubble. Nothing happened for a long time. Oh, you're finally at your limit? Dustless, who was leaning against the corner of the wall, couldn't help but look over. Although there were layers of ruins, through the perception of observation hockey, she clearly found that Mosquito Girl was on the verge of death. It's almost over. Snowflake, that mosquito isn't going to last much longer, Dustless said as he looked at the sweaty Snowflake. He took out a bottle of water from his pocket and tossed it to Snowflake. Gulp, gulp, gulp. After unscrewing the cap, Snowflake immediately began to gulp down the water. The whole bottle was emptied in about 10 seconds. She had used up a lot of stamina from the previous battle. That's it. This Mosquito Girl is also a useless piece of trash. Blowing Snow shook his fist and mumbled, I'm not serious yet. Is that so? Dustless's eyes suddenly narrowed and asked with a smile, You mean, you still want to play with her? Snowflake. Yes, I've been focusing on my physical fitness these days. I haven't found any suitable opponents. This Mosquito Girl is good, but unfortunately, she's not going to last much longer. Snowflake felt it was a pity. People's attitudes always change unconsciously. In the past, when she was a hero, Snowflake's goal was very simple, to destroy the monster and complete the mission. But now, since she followed Dustless, the so-called monster has completely become a role of a sparring partner. Her vision has changed. If you haven't played enough, you can punch that guy twice. Dustless smirked. Snowflake froze and said, Didn't Dustless Sama say that Mosquito Girl is not going to last much longer? That's true, but if she has nourishment, she can still fight. Dustless smiled mysteriously and said, I'll help her strengthen a little. Otherwise, she might be crippled by you again. Be careful later. Mosquito Girl's strength may become stronger. Okay. Snowblowing nodded heavily. He still looked incomparably confident. Wu-chan had also said that only through continuous pressure, unceasingly squeezing out one's own potential and surpassing oneself, and overcoming countless difficulties, would one be able to break through the so-called limit. Rumble. At this time, the ruins that buried Mosquito Girl suddenly collapsed. She flew out with wounds all over her body. Looking around, there was not a single spot on her body that was not injured, and there were wounds everywhere with blood flowing out. You bastard woman, I'm going to kill you. Mosquito Girl roared angrily. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she wished she could swallow Snowflake whole. It was a disgrace. She had been trampled on by a woman she had looked down on previously. This feeling was too painful. There was a reason why she had looked down on Snowflake. It was because Mosquito Girl had recognized Snowflake's identity. Previously, her withdrawal from the Hero Association had caused quite a stir, and the entire world knew about it. After all, she was Tornado's sister. It was impossible for her to not be noticed. Mosquito Girl also had a certain understanding of Snowflake and knew that she was the #1 hero in B rank. Therefore, she did not take it to heart. But now, she had been hung up and beaten by someone else. Her arm had been torn off. She had lost all her face. Huff, huff, huff. Mosquito Girl was gasping for breath. Her throat was moving violently, and the frightening blue veins on her neck were bulging. Her lungs had been injured in the battle just now, and she did not know when she would die before she could catch her breath. You want to kill me in your half-crippled state? Snowflake crossed her arms in front of her and shook her right arm in a threatening manner. I think I can destroy you with one hand. You will regret it immediately. In a while, You will understand how stupid you are. Mosquito Girl sneered with a twisted face. Her sinister expression was enough to give one nightmares. Chapter 22. A few years had passed, but Principal Margaret could still remember that the difference in strength between the students taught by Dustless and those who had never been taught was like heaven and earth. This was reflected vividly in Shadalisa. Janisa, who was ranked second in the second year, had never been taught by Dustless. In the end, she was just a small fry who could be defeated in a single blow. "It's time to announce the winner," said Principal Margaret. Shadalisa was the only one left in the second year, so it went without saying who the final winner would be. About half an hour later, the competition was over. Shadalisa had just walked out of the venue when she ran into Dustless and Violet, who had been waiting for her for a long time. Unlike Shadalisa, Violet did not choose the Pandora industry. Instead, he chose to take over the family business. In a short period of time, the Bridget family became a superpower in the world's business, infiltrating various businesses in various countries. Sister? With brother? Shadalisa noticed the two of them, and a warm smile bloomed on her cold face as she threw herself into Violet's arms. This scene stunned many people, and their eyes widened. When did the queen of exquisite contact become so approachable? What a miracle! Didn't I say it before? How many times have I said it? You're not allowed to call me brother. Dustless flicked Shadalisa's forehead in annoyance. Because of his youthful appearance, he had always maintained the appearance of an 18-year-old to a 20-year-old, and Shadalisa had always treated him like an older brother. Shadalisa rubbed her head and giggled. She blinked her big eyes and said, "Am I supposed to call you old man? Forget it, up to you." Dustless could not be bothered to argue, and said bluntly, "Speaking of which, do you feel any discomfort in your body?" Dustless's cells were not something that could be easily controlled. It was just like how only a few people could transplant Hashirama's cells. If there's a flaw, it's that it's too explosive. Sometimes, I can't control that powerful force. As for its advantages, it has too many. The biggest advantage is that it almost never tires. I've tried not sleeping for several days and nights, and it still felt like nothing had happened. So you're experimenting on my cells. Dustless rolled his eyes. He was relieved to hear that there were no side effects. In Naruto, many people died after transplanting Hashirama cells, and Dustless's cells were stronger than Hashirama's, which meant that he was in more danger. He was relieved to hear that Shadaraza was fine. This is a rare opportunity. Let's have a meal together. It's not easy to get into this school. I only managed to sneak in by pretending to be Dustless, Cohen's wife. Violet complained with some dissatisfaction. Dean Margaret was unexpectedly strict. Wife. Shadaraza was stunned when she heard that. She stared at Violet for a few seconds before saying nonchalantly, "That's not a good idea at all. It's best not to use it next time. It's too embarrassing to be exposed. After all, you're the head of Bridget's family." Aya, is that really the case? With a smirk on his face, Violet narrowed his eyes. "I seem to smell something sour. Whose vinegar jar has been knocked over?" Hearing Violet's words, Shadaraza was extremely embarrassed. She glared fiercely at Violet and clenched her fists, clearly implying that she would beat him up if he dared to speak any more nonsense. "You dare to threaten your sister?" Violet's interest was piqued as he said with a smile, "Do you believe that I will?" "Sister-y?" Before Violet could finish, the sudden voice interrupted her with great surprise. "That name sounds familiar. Could it be that kid?" Dustless was also stunned. His gaze swept over the source of the commotion. When he saw the person with delicate features, he felt relieved. "It's indeed Kinzuya Aoki. Is this the guy that Grandpa wanted me to conquer? Is it because of the implantation of my sister's divine mark?" Kinzuya Aoki was stunned for a moment when he saw Shadalisa. Then, he began to think of a way to win her over. That's right. Kinzuya Aoki's mind flashed as he thought of a good way to get close to Shadaraza. He leaped over. "Sister, I've missed you for a long time." This sudden scene made everyone stop in their tracks. Kinzuya Aoki was about to hug Shadaraza. Plop! Kazuya Aoki hugged a body and was instantly overjoyed. Grandpa, I succeeded. However, he soon realized that something was wrong. Kazuya Aoki muttered to himself in confusion. Why is this body so hard and so cold? Shadowraza's body is clearly very voluptuous. I'm a man. My body is definitely not as soft as a woman's. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Also, can you send me away now? The sudden voice made Kazuya Aoki shiver. He looked up and saw Dustless's cold face. Damn it, why am I hugging this bastard? The corner of Kazuya Aoki's mouth twitched. An army of 100,000 alpacas ran through his mind. Do you really want to die that badly? Shadowraza's gaze was as cold as a knife. Her eyes were filled with killing intent as she looked at Kazuya Aoki. If not for Dustless, she might have been the one hugged just now. Just the thought of it infuriated Shadowraza. In her entire life, there were only 3 people who had ever touched her body. One was her mother, one was her older sister, Violet, who often fooled around, and the last was Dustless, who had personally taught her how to fight. Chapter 23. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Another sharp, piercing sound came from the front, only to see a large number of arrows coming from the front, wanting to completely obliterate Dustless. But Poochie, his body was pierced through again, but the result was exactly the same as before. It was quickly repaired, and he was still unscathed. And the process of repair only took a few seconds. He can still release such a strange ability, even after being poisoned. Red Assassin was surprised at Dustless's vitality. How could he not be affected at all after being poisoned? Then she coldly snorted. Then let me see how tenacious your little life is. Boom, boom, boom. At this point, it seemed that only the poison fog could defeat Dustless. So Red Assassin released all the poison fog without holding back. In an instant, the poison content in the lungs suddenly increased by several times, and even the sky turned purple. The most frightening thing was that the surrounding green grass and trees withered, and even the fertile land was drained of vitality, turning into an endless desert, as if it was in a purple death god space. And Dustless was still standing there safe and sound. What's the use of this thing? Dustless quickly formed a seal with his hands, and then shouted, Wind escape, great breakthrough. Rumble. A strong hurricane whistled out from Dustless's mouth, and the purple poison fog that covered the sky was suddenly blown away. TSK, this despicable guy. Red Assassin cursed, and her voice was slightly angry. If she had to find a natural enemy for the poison fog, it would be the wind. When the wind blew, the poison fog was dispersed. If I don't show some real ability, it's impossible to kill this guy. Red Assassin's beautiful eyes glanced at Red Archer, and still had that arrogant attitude. We'll have to fight with our lives on the line. You temporarily delay this guy. I need to prepare. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. After saying that, without waiting for Red Archer's decision, Red Assassin disappeared. This arrogant woman really thinks of herself as a queen. Archer's expression was unhappy, and his tone was also very unhappy. Listening to Assassin's tone, it was as if she was ordering him around like a subordinate. The Empress of Assyria is worrying too much. Dustless spoke with fervor and assurance. He said in a rather evil manner, This woman's personality is too arrogant. It should be very interesting to trample on this kind of woman's dignity. Do you think that if I let her use all her strength to unleash her ultimate move and then easily destroy it, would that woman's expression be very interesting? Archer's body trembled, and he felt an inexplicable chill. Was this guy looking forward to it? Even though she was repulsed by Assassin's arrogance that day, she understood that Assassin had the strength and capital to do so. Rumble. A large number of mud walls rose from the ground in all directions, forming a wall that was dozens of meters tall. Assassin then reinforced the wall with her own mana, forming a barrier. It could be said that the wall was impenetrable. Boom, boom, boom. Not long after, a large amount of thick purple fog drifted out from the sealed space. The smell was even stronger and more intense than the previous one. Dustless's expression did not change, and he was completely unaffected. He stood there calmly. But cough, cough, cough. Red Archer coughed violently, and a few mouthfuls of bright red blood came out from her mouth. She almost roared, "You insidious woman! Are you planning to kill me too?" Red Archer trembled with anger. This woman was truly vicious. She even killed her own teammate? Isn't that normal? However, Wu Chan explained calmly. For her, you who know the truth seems to be a hindrance. She may even fight with her after the matter is over. So, it's better to find a chance to kill you too. If I'm dead, there's almost nothing in the Black Side's heroic spirit that can threaten her. The assistance of you heroic spirits is also insignificant. With Red Assassin's strength, she could almost wipe out everything. Assassin! Archer's angry voice echoed in the sealed space, and no one responded. The strong would only use their fists to crush everything as a response. Only the weak would moan for no reason. Archer! Assassin's mocking voice also rang out. She said slowly, I'm really sorry. There's only one Holy Grail, and too many heroic spirits will be a hindrance. It's better for some of them to die early, don't you think? Anyway, we'll still have to fight after defeating the black heroic spirits. Why don't you suffer a little and leave early? You, this bastard. Archer gritted his teeth. The humiliation of being betrayed was too humiliating for a heroic spirit. Farewell. In the sealed space, a mysterious magic circle appeared in the void. Not only was poisonous fog spewing out, but there were also terrifying howls. Come out, Batum. Let the enemy see your horror before they die. As soon as the red team assassin finished speaking, the shackles on the monster hidden in the magic array were removed, and it was completely released. Ow, ow! A ferocious giant head rushed out of the magic circle surrounded by purple light. He opened his mouth, and a heart-wrenching sound spread out. So noisy. It's not like we're comparing whose voice is louder. Dustless picked his ears and looked up. For some reason, the monster only showed its head. Its huge body seemed to be hidden in the magic circle. However, even so, it was already very terrifying. This monster, called Batum, was a monster from Babylonian mythology. It was one of the 11 monsters created by Tiamat. Even Semiramis could not summon this monster in an instant. Chapter 24. This. How is this possible? Everyone's eyes widened to the extreme. Their eyes were as big as copper, and they were all in a daze. This guy can ignore my pure ice domain. Kazuya Aoki was dumbfounded. Dustless walked over calmly, as though he was taking an afternoon stroll. As expected, Sensei is always so unfathomable. Shifong was not surprised. The title of the strongest man in the world was not just for show. Brat, a few seconds later, Dustless walked in front of Kazuya Aoki. He stretched out his finger and tapped the void lightly. Bam! This seemingly casual tap was like the hand of the heavens. With a light tap, Kazuya Aoki's pure ice domain instantly collapsed. The azure domain that enveloped everyone also disappeared. You're still far from being able to challenge me at this level, Dustless said calmly. Immediately, his eyes turned cold, and a piercing cold light shot out. Ka. Under the pressure of this aura, Kazuya Aoki immediately knelt down. His knees even cracked the ground. Dustless Sensei, please show mercy. After all, he's just a freshman who knows nothing. Shifong quickly admitted defeat for Kazuya Aoki. The difference was too great. I have no intention of dealing with this kid. Otherwise, he would have been beheaded. Dustless turned and left. I just want him to understand the difference between us. Let's go, Shadalisa and Violet. The three of them gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. The two girls stood on Dustless's left and right, guarding him like bodyguards. Can this guy ignore my pure ice domain? Kazuya Aoki's lips trembled uncontrollably. He could not hide his shock. Just how powerful was Dustless? Didn't I say before that I'm not even comparable to a finger of Dustless Sensei? Shifong patted Kazuya Aoki's arrangement and smiled as she comforted him. Dustless Sensei, isn't the kind of person you think he is. He's very gentle. Oomph. How can you understand my pain? Kazuya Aoki did not appreciate it. He snorted coldly and left angrily. His own sister had been killed by Dustless. Who could be at ease? Who could pretend that nothing had happened? Absolutely not. Sir President, this guy is too insensible. He completely doesn't understand how great teacher Dustless is. Dustless, Sensei killed that brat's sister because Aoki and Yi had already been Nova at that time, and their consciousness couldn't return. That's why Dustless Sensei killed them. Shifong complained to Bantisi Finello. In Seagate School, Wuchen had a large group of female fans. That guy. I hope he can recognize himself. Shifong also shook her head and sighed. Perhaps she was worrying too much, because it wouldn't take long for Kazuya Aoki to realize how scary it was to offend Dustless in this school. That despicable guy. The culprit who killed my sister seems to be quite popular. We have to be careful. Kazuya Aoki was extremely depressed. Because he had offended Dustless, he realized that many people were looking at him strangely. Some of them were even filled with hostility. Hey, brat. At this moment, a rather pleasant voice was heard. Kazuya Aoki could not help but be stunned. He raised his head and saw a rather pretty girl blocking his way. I'm Shinzuki-ya, a third-year student. Looking at your troubled and distressed look, it seems like you need help. The girl who suddenly appeared introduced. There was a playful glint deep in her eyes. I'm a new student, Senior Shinzuki. May I know where the cafeteria is? Kazuya Aoki scratched his head and asked embarrassedly. The cafeteria? Let's go together. It's lunchtime and I'm hungry. Shinzuki did not care if Kazuya Aoki agreed or not. She directly led him away. Thank you. Kazuya Aoki immediately expressed his gratitude. It turned out that there were still people in this school who hated Dustless. I heard that you're the younger brother of the hero, Kazuya Aoki? Shinzuki is suddenly asked along the way. Yes, that's my sister. The bastard who killed her is Dustless. Kazuya Aoki clenched his fists and roared angrily. I see. Shinzuki nodded when she heard that. The surprise in her eyes disappeared. She lowered her voice and asked, in other words, you're Dustless's enemy? Of course. Is there need to ask? My sister was killed by him. Kazuya Aoki said gloomily. We've arrived at the cafeteria. You can go in. Shinzuki pointed at the closed door in the distance. Her eyes were flickering with a cold light. Thank you. Kazuya Aoki bowed and thanked her. Just as he was about to open the door, he suddenly frowned. There was a notice beside him. It said that there was a daily sparring session. Sparring? Sparring? Is this a place for eating? Kazuya Aoki was filled with questions, but he still opened the door. There was no scene of students gathering in front of him. There was only a spacious area. What is this place? Kazuya Aoki was confused. Shinzuki-ya's ghost-like voice suddenly came from behind him. Don't you understand? Of course, it's a place for duels. Get in. Bang. Shinzuki-ya kicked Kazuya Aoki in. The open door closed instantly. At that moment, Shinzuki-ya laughed maniacally. As for Kazuya Aoki, he was completely dumbfounded. What was going on? Ha ha. Are you Dustless's enemy? That's great. As long as I beat you half to death, Dustless might look at me in a different light. He will definitely teach me a few moves. Look at that despicable woman, Shadowlisa. Because of Dustless, her strength is unreliable. Once I obtain that Lord's recognition, I will be able to rise to the heavens. Ha! I've been tricked. Kazuya Aoki's heart sank when he heard that. He closed his eyes in despair. Chapter 25. Seeing the shiny sand wrapping around him, Dustless didn't dodge and let the sand wrap around him. He closed his eyes indifferently. Facing such a desperate situation, he didn't show any fear. However, Dustless's calm appearance had a different meaning in the eyes of others. I went out for a while, and a supply force of hundreds of ninjas was annihilated in less than half an hour. A group of useless things. The voice of the newcomer was imposing. His aura was calm and powerful. His body was sturdy, his skin was dark, and his majestic voice lingered in the sky. The sound of chakra stirred up a circle of ripples in the sky. But it was a monk. They were annihilated by such a little kid. How dare you? The face of the sand village is lost because of you. Looking at Dustless, who was instantly subdued by his ninjutsu, the thin monk's mouth raised a touch of disdain. He immediately looked around at the broken limbs. His cold eyes didn't show the slightest mercy. Instead, he mercilessly scolded. Clang, clang, clang. A roar similar to the collision of steel sounded. The burly man subconsciously looked up and saw that it was the sound that came from Dustless. Not bad, you didn't die. I didn't expect a waste like you to have some skills. The hunchbacked monk had a faint smile on his face. He crossed his arms in front of him and looked at Wu Chun, who was wrapped in golden sand, with great interest. His face was full of expectation and curiosity. It was not hard to see that he really hoped that Wu Chun could break free. It seemed that he was looking forward to Dustless's performance. It was like a cat playing with a mouse. Boom! The golden sand that surrounded Dustless burst open in an instant and scattered in all directions. Dustless was intact and exposed to the air. He looked straight forward and saw the mysterious person looking at him with a playful face. His brows suddenly frowned. His face became gloomy, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He pointed his thumb forward and pointed at the monk. Laser. The laser was ejected in a straight line, and in the blink of an eye, it was in front of him. What a strange trick. He doesn't even need to make hand seals. The bald monk looked at Dustless in surprise, and immediately looked at the oncoming laser and smiled faintly. He was not afraid at all. His demeanor was very calm. He didn't put Dustless in his eyes at all. There was a kind of feeling of being at the top. Son of a bitch, taking advantage of your seniority. I will make you cry later. The corner of Dustless's mouth twitched fiercely. Looking at the calm and composed old charcoal in front of him, Dustless was so angry that his nose was crooked. At the same time, he secretly raised his guard. This guy's origin was mysterious. There were only 4 known people in this world who could use the magnetic escape. Boom! Just as the light beam was about to penetrate the monk, a thick layer of sand suddenly stood in front of him, blocking Wu Chen's attack. Little brat. What's your name? My name is Finfu. After removing the metal sand in front of him, Finfu raised his head and said in a proud tone, looking down at Dustless like a proud rooster. Shut up. Who do you think you are? I have never heard of your name, which means you are a fake. If you are a fake, you should have the awareness of being a fake, especially an ugly son of a bitch like you who has no human rights. You have no right to know my name. Dustless, who had a stomach full of anger, immediately began to attack with his mouth, using the most vicious words he could think of. You said I am ugly? The old monk called Funfu's mouth twitched fiercely. He didn't understand Dustless's words, but when he heard the words, an ugly son of a bitch like you who has no human rights, he was instantly enraged. Chakra was so angry that he went berserk. Funfu's old face was burning. Dustless's vicious words made him feel worse than if he was beaten up. Go to hell. Funfu's eyes were red, full of anger. His thin body suddenly burst out, but his palm was huge, comparable to a bear's paw, and grabbed Dustless's neck with a ferocious smile on his face. Looking at this situation, it seemed that he wanted to remove Dustless's head. You dare to say, I am ugly? I will beat your mother until she doesn't recognize you, you bastard. Funfu roared to the sky, seeing Dustless was motionless, and he was about to succeed. His voice was full of endless joy, and the smile on his face was as scary as a ghost. However, Dustless just smiled strangely. His dark eyes rolled rapidly, and the 5-pointed Mangekyo Sharingan stared at the big hand of Funfu, grinning and staring at the big hand. An irregular black flame flashed in his eyes. Amaterasu. Blood suddenly flowed out of the corner of his eyes, and the black flame surged out and almost instantly fell on Rakshas's arm. It hurts. Damn son of a bitch. The severe pain instantly spread to the nerve cells all over his body. Rakshasa looked at his right arm in surprise, and was horrified to find that his right arm was wrapped in a black flame. Sharingan? Damn son of a bitch, you are from the Uchiha clan. I'm the one who wants your old life. With a ferocious smile, Dustless's body floated with a golden luster, and in an instant, he appeared behind Finfu. Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? Now I will let you taste what it feels like to be kicked at the speed of light. Light speed kick. Chapter 26. In this battle, other than Dustless becoming famous, Iace also received a lot of attention. How was this possible? At this moment, the audience on Iace's side was stunned. This girl who usually kept a low profile had displayed an extremely powerful combat strength. How is this possible? Why is it impossible? Iace said faintly. She only used one hand to lightly grab her opponent's inherent spiritual equipment with pure strength. This girl, the director, was also very cautious. Although it was possible for her to become stronger, how old was Iace? Moreover, this girl's performance was not outstanding before. You did it? The director looked at Dustless, who was beside her. Why do you suspect that I did it? Wu Chun asked indifferently. Because someone saw you sneaking into Iace's place at night and reported it to me. The director said truthfully. It was that little girl Stacy who secretly followed me, right? Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said with certainty, she must have said that I was peeping on a beauty. You know her well. The director nodded slightly. It could be considered that she agreed with Dustless's words. Stacy did report it, but the director didn't care. Iace didn't complain about Dustless, so what right did she have to say it? Maybe it was because both of them liked each other. That's right, it was indeed my masterpiece. How is it? Very strong, right? Dustless said with a hint of pride. How'd you do it? The director looked at Dustless in astonishment. Her beautiful eyes were filled with horror. Since ancient times, no matter what one did, one had to do it step by step. It was the same for the Slayer. If one wanted to become stronger, they had to constantly train and increase their own strength. However, Iace's appearance broke everyone's understanding. This girl's combat strength can now easily defeat the #1 Dongtang Daohua. Dustless said calmly, as if he was describing a trivial matter. No way. She improved so much. The director's mouth was wide open. Her beautiful eyes were shining brightly. What kind of changes did Iace go through to evolve to such a shocking level? Don't get carried away. In the center of the arena, Iace's opponent seemed to be enraged. His inherent spiritual equipment swept towards the former at an extremely tricky angle. Poochie, a deep scar appeared on Iace's snow-white wrist, and her bones could be seen. It doesn't seem to be of much use. Seeing this, the chairman's inner throbbing quickly calmed down. So what if he gained great power? His skills and experience did not increase. Just watch carefully. Don't underestimate people with my bloodline. Dustless crossed his arms in front of his chest. He was confident in Iace. Your bloodline. The chairman looked at Dustless in confusion. He couldn't figure out what this meant. Dustless wasn't Iace's relative. How could this have anything to do with blood? Look, the wound has healed. Cries of surprise resounded throughout the room. The chairman subconsciously looked at Iace, and her beautiful eyes immediately narrowed. Her wrist, which had been cut, had already recovered. There wasn't even a scar left behind. Did you give this to her too? The chairman immediately looked back at Dustless. Her gaze had already changed. It was both greedy and passionate. You seem to be very tempted. Looking at the chairman's fascinated face, Dustless calmly said, Of course this kind of wound can be healed. Vampires have almost unlimited lifespan. This kind of superficial wound can be automatically healed. Vampires? The chairman was shocked and exclaimed, You turned Iace into a monster like a vampire. Monster? I really don't know where your prejudice comes from. If you want to gain great power, you have to go through some necessary changes. Although you're completely separated from humans, it's not without benefits. First of all, you gain unlimited lifespan. Dustless didn't hide anything and said bluntly, Ordinary wounds will automatically heal, unless it's an extremely fatal wound that requires blood to heal. From a human to a vampire. I feel like this is a scene from a movie. The chairman's eyes were filled with doubt, but also with excitement. Kiki. Dustless suddenly laughed sinisterly, revealing two terrifying fangs. He licked the chairman's neck with his tongue and said, "Do you want me to give it a try?" Hearing this, the chairman immediately shuddered and then quickly distanced herself from Dustless. "Drink my blood, or let me bite you, and you can become a vampire," Dustless said casually. "No wonder you're so strong. You're not just a human." The chairman looked at Dustless cautiously and then felt relieved. She asked with some anticipation, "If I'm bitten by you, can I also become like Ace?" It seems that no one is immune to great power. Dustless smiled slightly and nodded in agreement. Not to mention, Ace had almost unlimited lifespan and a body that could heal at will. "No, you'll be more outstanding than her." Dustless paused and explained, "Iace's own strength is too weak. You're far stronger than her. After becoming a vampire, your strength will increase far beyond her. Who asked you to have a higher starting line than her? What about the side effects?" The chairman looked at Dustless and asked. She wasn't stupid. There was no such thing as a free lunch. "You'll be my servant forever, and you won't be able to resist me." Dustless couldn't help but look at the chairman. Although this girl was a little tempted, she could suppress her emotions very well. Chapter 27. Dustless's words were like a bolt from the blue, exploding. Monk Finfu was stunned, and Shikaku in his spiritual world was also stunned. It wasn't until a long time later that Shikaku recovered and began to curse without hesitation. "Fuck, don't use your Sharingan. I promise I won't kill you." In Finfu's spiritual world, Shikaku flew into a rage, and his already ferocious and scary raccoon head became even scarier. Murderous intent broke out like a flood, attacking his reason. "Don't get carried away. Lawless kid, do you think you are invincible after opening Manjikyu Sharingan? It's just a pair of eyes that can only play with Jinjutsu." Finfu was angry again and again, looking at Dustless with disdain. Manjikyu Sharingan is famous for its Jinjutsu. This is well known, but it's just a higher form of the three-tomo Sharingan at most. It's more powerful than the three-tomo Sharingan. Dustless shook his head. Seeing this, he knew that Finfu didn't understand the Manjikyu Sharingan, so he wasn't surprised at all. Since Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Izuna, almost no one has opened Manjikyu Sharingan for nearly 100 years, and most people's understanding of the Uchiha stopped at the three-tomo Sharingan. In that case, I will let you understand the power of the real Manjikyu Sharingan. The killing intent burst out. Suddenly, a ripple swept out of Wu Chen's pupils. His body also rose with an incomparably evil golden chakra. That terrible emotion of destruction chakra was no worse than the chakra of the tailed beast catastrophe incarnation. This is not Jinjutsu. And what's with that disturbing chakra? Finfu stared at the solid, evil chakra on Dustless and suddenly felt a throbbing in his soul. Looking at the terrifying scarlet eyes of Dustless, Finfu felt like he was being stared at by a tailed beast, and he lost the will to fight. Even if it's an ordinary skeleton, you are afraid to this extent? It's funny to see such a timid Jinchuriki like you. I'm afraid you're the first one. Looking at the Rakshasa, who was drenched in sweat and fearful, Dustless could not help but sneer. His pupils suddenly dilated, and chakra erupted from all over his body. Kinsusanu. The solid chakra quickly condensed and combined. Under Finfu's surprised gaze, a giant skeleton made of solid chakra was born. Bunpuku was so shocked that he was almost petrified. Wasn't it said that the Sharingan specialized in Jinjutsu? What did this mean? Things will move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme? Don't look so surprised. This is just a newborn Kinsusanu. It's still far from that. Kinsusanu condense. As Dustless's voice fell, behind the skeleton Kinsusu, thick chakra once again swept up, and countless meridians and blood vessels were slowly formed, holding a slender ancient sword and wearing the Tengu armor. What the hell is this thing? Taking a deep breath, Fun Fu's pupils were gloomy, and he desperately looked at the giant chakra that covered the sky. The majestic and oppressive chakra almost made him delirious. This is the Kinsusanu of the Uchiha clan. It's really amazing. That kid has opened the Manjikyu Sharingan, and he has mastered this technique that could be called the power of the gods. He really has the strength to fight me head-on. In Rakshas's spiritual world, Ichibi Shikaku muttered to himself, and his tone was no longer as arrogant and unrestrained as before. Instead, it was replaced by an unprecedented seriousness, and at the same time, it was unusually heavy. And what made Shikaka most concerned was that Kinsusanu was obviously not ordinary. This is obviously a mature Kinsusanu. How can it be so big? Shikaku's face was black, and he was very speechless. It was obviously a mature Kinsusanu, and it wasn't the ultimate Kinsusanu, but its body size was twice as big as other mature Kinsusanu. Can it be called the power of the gods? Although Shikaka didn't understand it for a long time, but the power of the gods made him feel desperate, indicating that Kinsusanu has surpassed the limit of ninjutsu. Kinsusanu symbolizes destruction. As long as you see it once, you will inevitably die. One slash can cut off everything, and its power is comparable to that of a bijou, Dustless lightly explained. Although his Kinsusanu was only a mature Kinsusanu, its size was twice as big as Itachi, and its ability was naturally much stronger. At the same time, his body was extremely uncomfortable, and his bones were stinging as if they were being pricked by needles. His vision suddenly blurred, and his spirit was extremely tired. Damn, is this the side effect of Kinsusanu? Before, when I used Amaterasu and Tsukuyami, I didn't feel too strong, but I didn't expect Kinsusanu to be so exhausting. It seems that I have to end this quickly. Staring at Shikaku, Dustless controlled Kinsusanu to move forward, and he felt tired all over his body, and his killing intent became stronger. The dark straight shadow covered the earth, and the sharp shadow refracted by the shadow made Shikaku's whole body extremely painful, and inevitably, he subconsciously looked at Dustless. Kinsusanu's long katana was raised high, like a guillotine, and the person who was about to be beheaded wasn't Shikaku himself, but the whole earth. Boom! Like a god's attack, the earth suddenly burst open, and a dark crack suddenly appeared on the perfect earth, and the narrow crack extended infinitely more than 100 meters, and the bottom couldn't be seen. Even the flow of air was cut off by Dustless's Kinsusanu. Under one slash, the sky was so small, and the earth was so fragile. Looks like it's similar to the glint fruit's ability. So this is what my void is. Dustless sighed. He did not pay much attention to Dath, who was wielding a greatsword. How could he lose to a rat who only dared to hide in the dark? Unbelievable. Is this power really a human's void? Dath enchanted the gorgeous photon greatsword. His hands were trembling as he gently rubbed the blade of the sword. He felt the power contained in it and praised. Perhaps the king's void is different from others. This idiot. Hearing this, Dustless sneered. He could tell at a glance that this was the power of his glint fruit. It was the power he first obtained. What did it have to do with void? If he had to force a connection, it was just the glint fruit being used by Dath in the form of void. Before we fight, there's one thing I have to make clear. Dath's expression became incomparably stern. He said with the tone of a victor, "If you're willing to create a new world with Ingman's real name, I'm willing to stand by your side." Suddenly, his eyes became as clear as pearls. His small hands continued to rub the blade of the lightsaber back and forth. I suddenly feel that you're more suitable than Yangshinya to be the ancestor of the new humans. After all, your genes seem to be stronger than his. Perhaps after you combine with Ingman's real name, the new humans born will be stronger. Using a person to create a new race. Is it any different from breeding pigs? Dustless shook his head and refused. He did not have that kind of interest. A person living for the sake of reproduction was no different from a walking corpse. As long as one was alive, one should live freely and unfettered. That makes sense. Dath was not surprised. His expression was like a pool of stagnant water. It was as if he had expected Dustless to give such an answer. Everyone's worldview was different, and their pursuits were also very different. Some people loved money, and some people viewed money as dirt. No matter the time, there would always be people who did not play by the rules. Although I can understand what you're thinking, I won't allow you to ruin my plan. Dath's eyes suddenly emitted a shocking chill. He was like a bloodthirsty beast. He held the golden great sword with both hands and slashed it fiercely in front of him. Boom, boom, boom. A huge slash swarmed over. It was unstoppable, like a fierce dragon that had broken out of its cage. It gnawed on the ground and tore open a very conspicuous gully. It went straight for Dustless. Even after obtaining my power, it's only at this level. Looking at the vast scale of the slash, Dustless could not help being greatly disappointed. Better let me teach you how to use the power of light. As soon as he finished speaking, countless rays of light burst out from Dustless's body like a small sun. Chapter 29. Bang, boom, boom, boom. The place where Atlanta was standing was blasted into a huge hole that was more than 10 meters long, and a big man with muscles all over his body was standing in it. There was no doubt that this punch did not hit Atlanta. At the critical moment just now, she avoided it with a vigorous movement technique. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A burst of intensive, air-piercing sounds came from the east. Shiro Amakusa frowned suddenly and quickly shouted, "Berserker, go after her!" It was obviously the sound of footsteps, and there was no need to think about it. It was undoubtedly Atlanta. What a clingy guy. Looking at the big man chasing after her, Atlanta frowned. This guy was laughing as he chased after her. He was so mad that he no longer had any sense of reason. Atlanta decisively avoided the fight. Her goal was assassin, so she could forget about this big man. The situation has completely collapsed. Are we going to lose just like that? In the dead silent broken room, Shiro Amakusa was left alone again. He clenched his fists with a twisted expression. There was nothing more devastating than having one's dream shattered. Although he still had several heroic spirits on his side, they were obviously at a disadvantage compared to the black side. In addition, there were two powerful enemies, Ruler and Dustless. Especially Dustless. This was a hero that Shiro Amakusa was most afraid of. Until now, he still hadn't figured out where he came from and what kind of invincible history he had. Dustless. Shiro Amakusa's usually elegant face was now suffused with a ferocious expression, and his handsome cheeks were as terrifying as an evil spirit. When a rabbit was forced into a corner, it would bite people, let alone a scheming man like Shiro Amakusa. I'm very far away, but I can hear you calling my name." An unexpected voice suddenly rang out. Shiro Amakusa was startled at first, then he abruptly turned his head. What entered his eyes was Dustless, who was slowly walking over. Previously, he had been searching for other targets, but who knew that he happened to hear Shiro Amakusa's venting roar, which attracted him here. "I'm going to grind your bones to dust." Shiro Amakusa gritted his teeth, and a few blades appeared in his hands. He looked at Dustless with an unfriendly gaze, as if he wanted to swallow him alive. "If I remember correctly, this is the first time we've met. What's with your hateful expression?" Dustless was also puzzled. It was clearly the first time they had met. Was there something wrong with this? However, Shurjun looked at Shiro Amakusa with a vicious gaze, as if Dustless had done something to hurt him. Could it be that I killed your parents? Dustless rubbed his nose helplessly, because Shiro Amakusa's eyes were filled with hatred. It was as if he was looking at an enemy who had killed his parents. "You've ruined my dream and prevented me from saving the entire human race. This is countless times more serious than killing my parents." Shiro Amakusa roared, his voice hoarse. "In comparison, I'd rather have my parents dead." Dustless stared at Shiro Amakusa in silence. "Dream? Was the so-called dream so important that he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice his own parents? You're too stupid. Dustless shook his head. No matter what dream it was, if he didn't hesitate to sacrifice his parents, this kind of person was hopelessly stupid. If your parents knew that they had a sad son like you, they would definitely be in despair. Dustless couldn't help but sympathize with Shiro Amakusa's parents. Wasn't it a tragedy to have a son like this? What do you know? Shiro Amakusa snorted angrily and reprimanded. The world today is filthy, and the humans today are filthy and ugly. And Shiro Amakusa pointed at his own face and said emotionally, I only wanted to use the power of the Holy Grail to change the world and purify the human race. I wanted to give the entire human race a qualitative upgrade and create a truly perfect world. But you, a demon, actually destroyed my dream. You are a sinner to the entire human race. A sinner to the entire human race? Dustless's eyes widened. This was the first time he experienced the feeling of a pot falling from the sky. He became a sinner to the entire human race just because he destroyed Shiro Amakusa's plan? I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Dustless couldn't be bothered with Shiro Amakusa and said bluntly, Where did you hide that Leo jelly? Hand him over, and I'll let you die a quick death. Mordred had once begged Dustless to help save Leo jelly, and Dustless had readily agreed. After all, it was his daughter's request. Shiro Amakusa had a sinister smile on his face. What a pity. That guy might not even be in this world anymore. If that's the case, you'll die a horrible death. Dustless's eyes flashed with a cold light. For example, this is the outcome. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dustless flicked his finger, and a few rays of light shot straight at Shiro Amakusa. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Shiro Amakusa was prepared for this as well. He dodged immediately. Assassin had strengthened his body, and his speed, strength, and reaction speed had all received a qualitative upgrade. Boom, boom, boom. A few black holes immediately appeared where Shiro Amakusa had been standing. It won't be that easy to kill me. After dodging the attack, Shiro Amakusa looked at Dustless with his head held high. If you want to kill me, you'll have to at least puffed. Before he could finish his sentence, Shiro Amakusa screamed in pain. A few rays of light came from behind and easily pierced through his four limbs. Chapter 30. Plop. Shiro Amakusa didn't even have the strength to stand. Two holes appeared in his legs. His legs went soft, and he fell flat on his face. Dustless slowly walked over. Shiro Amakusa's face was full of hatred. It's you. Even though he knew that death was near, Shiro Amakusa still didn't know how to repent. Like a beast that had been forced into a desperate situation, he roared fiercely. Why did you stop me from saving all of humanity? You are. Bang. Dustless stepped on Shiro Amakusa's head. Because he used too much force, Shiro Amakusa's chin hit the floor, and it was instantly a bloody mess. All of his teeth were knocked out, and he was in so much pain that a layer of cold sweat appeared on his scalp. I'm sorry. I didn't control my strength just now. I'm really sorry. Dustless's eyes narrowed into crescents, and he smiled sinisterly. You are. Shiro Amakusa screamed in pain halfway through his sentence. It wasn't just his teeth. His upper and lower lips had been ground to mush. It was too painful to move the corners of his mouth when he spoke. I don't care why you're looking for that Leo jelly. I'll destroy everything you want. Even though he was grimacing in pain, even though he knew that he was going to die, Shiro Amakusa still went against Dustless. Dustless carefully examined Shiro Amakusa for a moment. I haven't met an iron-headed child like you in many years. Dustless's eyes flashed with a dark red light. If you want to play, I'll play with you until the end. After saying that, Dustless moved his foot and landed on Shiro Amakusa's shoulder. It seemed like he was planning to crush him. Saber. At this time, Shiro Amakusa suddenly roared. His face was ferocious, and he scolded in exasperation. Useless trash. You were actually defeated by a mere cyborg, and the strongest swordsman at that, bah. Dustless was startled by Shiro Amakusa's nonsensical words. Did he mean that Mordred had been defeated? The opponent is an android. Does that mean Sieg? I failed. It's all because of these guys. Apart from Assassin, none of them were useful, Shiro Amakusa complained. Lancer was killed by Dustless. Ryder was also killed by Dustless. Archer, Atlanta, surrendered to Dustless. And Mordred was also defeated. Just thinking about Shiro Amakusa made sure Jean want to vomit blood. What kind of bullshit was this? Brat, what's wrong with Mordred? Dustless's foot landed on Shiro Amakusa's shoulder, causing his bones to crack. What's your relationship with that guy? Why do you care so much about her? Shiro Amakusa asked hoarsely. It seemed that from the beginning, Dustless and Mordred had an inexplicable relationship. Technically, she's my daughter, even though we're not related by blood, Dustless said truthfully. Your daughter? Shiro Amakusa was completely dumbfounded. The situation was in a deadlock for a moment. Then he laughed maniacally. That's great. I'm sorry to tell you that your daughter has already been killed by that clone. As a father, your own daughter was killed, and you can only watch as it happened. Curse your incompetence. Shiro Amakusa barked, but Dustless didn't even blink. Although Mordred was defeated and killed, as a heroic spirit, she was already dead. As for Dustless and Mordred, there were no feelings between them. What incompetence and self-blame. Wasn't that just nonsense? But that clone actually defeated Mordred. That's quite surprising. Dustless shook his head, feeling that it was somewhat unreal. Why? Was it because Sieg had a protagonist aura? In any case, Mordred was someone who had inherited Artoria's bloodline. Losing to a mere clone was too humiliating. No matter how he looked at it, it was somewhat inconceivable. No matter what, you're going to die first. After saying that, Wu-Chin stepped on Shiro Amakusa's head. As long as this guy died, no matter who the red team spirit was, they would be done for. Wait. At this moment, a hurried voice sounded. Dustless's eyes narrowed as a pitiful figure appeared in front of him. You're already in this state, and you still want to stop me? Dustless stared at the injured person. It was Assassin. Although she had the advantage in terms of strength, she was heavily outnumbered, so she suffered quite a bit. Her pure black clothes were soaked in blood. Assassin. Shiro Amakusa's eyes trembled. He was also very surprised by Assassin's arrival. Let go of the master. He's just an ordinary person, Assassin said weakly. When she spoke, she pulled on her injuries, causing blood to flow out of the wounds all over her body. Say that again. I might have heard wrongly. Dustless dug his ears. Mother Astrasker, this woman was already in this state. She was riddled with wounds, yet she still wanted to ask him to let Shiro Amakusa go. Where did she get the courage? Assassin, I thought you were different from the others. After all, as an empress, there must be something that's completely different from the other heroic spirits. Who knew that you're still the same? You're no different from those idiots. You all like to say such nonsense. Shiro Amakusa, a must-die. Dustless's expression was cold as ice as he said cruelly. Chapter 31. Ayaya. I say, is there no one else in the Hero Association? They actually sent an old man to deal with me. Dustless looked at Silver Fong seriously. You're already so old. Not to mention your hunched back. Even your hair is white. I can't bear to kill you. Really? I don't see any respect for old people in your eyes. Silver Fong looked at Dustless solemnly, not daring to be careless. The Atomic Warrior was a living example. Dustless said it nicely, but in fact his eyes were as fierce and cruel as a beast's. There might be a little difference in strength between the 4th and 3rd ranked hero, but it was not much. Dustless could kill the Atomic Warrior with absolute power, which Silver Fong could not do. In other words, Silver Fong was probably not a match for him. Quick, run! The Atomic Warrior opened his eyes and roared with all his strength. The power in this guy's body is not something a normal human can have. Puff, puff, puff. After saying that, the Atomic Warrior spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. What you're saying, Makes me sound like a monster. Don't accuse me, kid. Dustless reminded him, feeling wronged. I don't have any intention of defeating him. My only thought is Silver Fong suddenly hugged the atomic warrior and left with a whoosh. His escape speed was so fast that he disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, it was not slower than the speed of light of the glint fruit. Really, you're already so old. Why are you still coming out to join in the fun? But his escape speed is too fast. It's obvious that he's an expert. Dustless's body emitted a bright light, and he followed with a whoosh. Silver Fong ran for about a minute. When he noticed that Dustless did not follow behind him, he put down the atomic warrior and gasped for breath. He sat on the ground, sweating profusely, and said, "He shouldn't have caught up, right? Usually when you say something like this, you usually fail. I'll just wait here for a while." Dustless's ghostly voice came from behind. Silver Fong raised his head abruptly and saw Dustless on the tall building, looking down at him and the atomic warrior. Dustless's playful eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was looking at two insects. "Why are you chasing us? Your friend seems to have been taken away by a monster. There will be big problems if we leave him alone." Silver Fong deliberately used awkward words and said, "Dragon-level monsters have always been extremely brutal. They are bloodthirsty, and they don't keep hostages." Silver Fong could only hope that Dustless could divert his firepower to the dragon-level monster. "I naturally won't spare the heroes, but I can't spare your hero association either. Who told you to list me as an enemy? What a bunch of fools." Dustless was expressionless as he plummeted from the sky and approached Silver Fang step by step. Cough, cough, cough. The atomic warrior spat out a mouthful of blood. He stood up miraculously, looked at Silver Fong, and said, "You retreat first. I'll hold him back." "How are you going to hold him back when you're already like this?" "By bragging." Dustless mocked. "Damn it, you have to consider the environment before bragging." "How can this be?" Silver Fong frowned deeply and looked at the atomic warrior unhappily. Then he stared at Dustless and said, "There doesn't seem to be any deep hatred between you and the Hero Association. I'm willing to help you smooth things over." "No need. You all think I'm a dragon-level monster. Then let's fight." Dustless refused directly. Then 10 tails appeared on his back. The atomic warrior and Silver Fong were stunned and exclaimed, "Are you that 10 tails? Are you in your human form now? You can understand it that way." Dustless nodded. "Now, but do you understand why I'm targeting you heroes?" Dustless held his head lazily. The atomic warrior and Silver Fong were devastated. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It was at this moment that a flash condensed on the left side of Silver Fong. A pure gold foot cast in gold fell directly. Light speed kick. This solid kick accurately landed on Silver Fong's body. Silver Fong groaned in pain, and then his whole body disappeared. Boom! The apartment not far away was directly hit by Silver Fong. This old man's body is quite hard. That kick just now was like kicking a diamond. It seems that he has trained his body quite a bit. Dustless muttered, then stared at the atomic warrior with terrifying eyes. "Let's start with you." "Go to hell." Laser. A beam of light pounced on the atomic warrior. His memory had been extracted, and this guy had no value. Dustless didn't need to show mercy. Poochie. The scorching beam penetrated the atomic warrior's head. His skull was directly penetrated. On the top of his head, a fist-sized hole was extremely conspicuous. Plop! The atomic warrior fell to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open. Ayaya. I say, is there no one else in the Hero Association? They actually sent an old man to deal with me. Dustless looked at Silver Fong seriously. He's old. Not to mention his hunched back. Even his hair is white. I can't bear to do it. Really? I don't see any respect for the old man in your eyes. Silver Fong looked at Dustless solemnly. He didn't dare to be careless. The atomic warrior was a living example. There might be a little difference in strength between the 4th and 3rd ranked hero, but it wasn't much. Dustless could kill the atomic warrior with absolute power. This was something that Silver Fong couldn't do. In other words, quick run. The atomic warrior opened his eyes and roared with all his strength. The power in this guy's body isn't something a normal human can have. What you're saying makes me sound like a monster. Don't accuse me, kid. Dustless reminded him, feeling wronged. I don't have any intention of defeating him. My only thought is Silver Fong suddenly hugged the atomic warrior and left with a whoosh. His escape speed was so fast that he disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, he wasn't slower than the speed of light of the glint fruit. Really, you're already so old. Why are you still coming out to join in the fun? But his escape speed is too fast. I can tell at a glance that he's an expert. Dustless's body emitted a bright light as he chased after Silver Fong. Silver Fong ran for about a minute. When he noticed that Dustless didn't follow behind him, he put down the atomic warrior and gasped for breath. He sat on the ground and said, sweating profusely, "He shouldn't have caught up with us, right? Usually when you say something like this, you usually fail. I'll just wait here for a while." Dustless's ghostly voice came from behind. Silver Fong raised his head abruptly and saw Dustless on the tall building, looking down at him and the atomic warrior. Dustless's playful eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was looking at two insects. "Why are you chasing us? Your friend seems to have been taken away by a monster. If we leave him alone, there will be big problems," Silver Fong said in a deep voice, deliberately using embarrassing words. Dragon-level monsters have always been extremely cruel. They are bloodthirsty. They don't keep hostages. Silver Fong only hoped that Dustless could divert his attention to the dragon-level monster. "I naturally won't let go of Hero, but I can't let go of your hero association either. Who asked you to list me as an enemy? A bunch of idiots." Dustless was expressionless. His body fell from the sky and approached Silver Fong step by step. Cough, cough, cough. The atomic warrior spat out a mouthful of blood. His little universe exploded as he stood up miraculously. He looked at Silver Fong and said, "You retreat first. I'll hold him back here." "You're already like this. How are you going to hold him back?" "By bragging." Dustless mocked. "Damn it. You have to consider the environment before bragging." "How can this be?" Silver Fong immediately frowned deeply and looked at the atomic warrior unhappily. Then he looked at Dustless and said, "There doesn't seem to be any deep hatred between you and the Hero Association. I'm willing to help you smooth things over." "No need. You all think I'm a dragon-level monster. Then let's fight." Dustless directly refused. Then, 10 tails appeared on his back. The atomic warrior and Silver Fong were stunned. They exclaimed, "Are you that 10 tails? Are you in your human form now?" "You can understand it that way." Dustless nodded. "Now do you understand why I'm targeting you heroes?" Dustless lazily hugged his head. The atomic warrior and Silver Fong's hearts were dead. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, a flash condensed on the left side of Silver Fong. A pure gold foot cast in gold directly fell. Lightspeed kick. This solid kick accurately landed on Silver Fong's body. Silver Fong groaned in pain, and then his whole body disappeared. Rumble. Silver Fong crashed into an apartment not far away. This old man's body is quite hard. That kick just now was like kicking a diamond. It seems that he has trained his body quite a bit. Dustless muttered, then stared at the atomic warrior with terrifying eyes. "Let's start with you." "Go to hell." Laser. A beam of light pounced on the atomic warrior. Since his memory had been extracted, this guy had no value. Dustless didn't need to show mercy. Poochie, the scorching beam penetrated the atomic warrior's head. His skull was directly penetrated. On the top of his head, a fist-sized hole was extremely conspicuous. Plop! The atomic warrior fell to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open. Ayaya. I say, is there no one else in the Hero Association? They actually sent an old man to deal with me. Dustless looked at Silver Fong seriously. He's old, not to mention his hunched back. Even his hair is white. I can't bear to do it. Really? I don't see any respect for the elderly in your eyes. Silver Fong looked at Dustless solemnly. He didn't dare to be careless. The atomic warrior was a living example. There might be a little difference in strength between the 4th and 3rd ranked hero, but it wasn't much. Dustless could kill the atomic warrior with absolute power, which Silver Fong couldn't do. In other words, quick, run. The atomic warrior opened his eyes and roared with all his strength. The power in this guy's body is not something a normal human can have. What you said makes me sound like a monster. Don't simply accuse people, kid. Dustless reminded him, feeling wronged. I don't have any intention of defeating him. My only thought is Silver Fong suddenly hugged the atomic warrior and left with a whoosh. His escape speed was so fast that he disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, he wasn't any slower than the speed of light of the glint fruit. Really? You're already so old. Why are you still coming out to join the fun? But his escape speed is too fast. I can tell at a glance that he's an expert. Dustless's body emitted a bright light, and he followed with a whoosh. Silver Fong ran for about a minute. When he noticed that Dustless didn't follow behind him, he put down the atomic warrior and gasped for breath. He sat on the ground, sweating profusely, and said, "He shouldn't have caught up, right? Usually when you say something like this, you usually fail. I'll actually wait here for a while." Dustless's ghostly voice came from behind. Silver Fong raised his head abruptly and saw Dustless on the tall building, looking down at him and the atomic warrior. Dustless's playful eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was looking at two insects. "Why are you chasing us? Your friend seems to have been taken away by a monster. If we leave him alone, there will be big problems," Silver Fong said in a deep voice, deliberately using embarrassing words. Dragon-level monsters have always been extremely cruel. They are bloodthirsty. They don't keep hostages. Silver Fong only hoped that Dustless could divert his attention to the dragon-level monster. "I won't let go of Hero, but I can't let go of your hero association either. Who asked you to list me as an enemy? A bunch of idiots." Dustless was expressionless. His body fell from the sky and approached Silver Fong step by step. Cough, cough, cough. The atomic warrior spat out a mouthful of blood. His little universe exploded. He stood up miraculously, looked at Silver Fong, and said, "You retreat first. I'll hold him back here." "You're already like this. How can you hold him back?" "By bragging." Dustless mocked. "Damn it, you have to consider the environment before bragging." "How can this be?" Silver Fong immediately frowned deeply as he looked unhappily at the atomic warrior. Then, he looked at Dustless and said, "There doesn't seem to be any deep grudges between you and the Hero Association. I'm willing to help you mediate the relationship." "No need. You all think I'm a dragon-level monster. Then let's fight." Dustless refused directly. Then, 10 tails appeared on his back. The atomic warrior and Silver Fong were stunned. They exclaimed, "Are you that 10 tails? Are you in your human form now? You can understand it that way." Dustless nodded. "Now you understand why I'm targeting you heroes?" Dustless lazily hugged his head. The atomic warrior and Silver Fong's hearts were dead. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, a flash condensed on the left side of Silver Fong. A pure gold foot made of gold fell directly. Lightspeed kick. This solid kick accurately landed on Silver Fong's body. Silver Fong groaned in pain, and then his whole body disappeared. Boom! The apartment not far away was directly hit by Silver Fong. This old man's body is quite hard. That kick just now was like kicking a diamond. It seems that he has trained his body quite a bit. Dustless muttered, then stared at the atomic warrior with terrifying eyes. "Let's start with you. Go to hell." Laser. A beam of light rushed towards the atomic warrior. His memory had been extracted, and this guy had no value. Dustless didn't need to show mercy. Poochie, the scorching beam penetrated the atomic warrior's head. His skull was directly penetrated. On the top of his head, a fist-sized hole was extremely conspicuous. Plop! The atomic warrior fell to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open. Chapter 32. This is an undeniable fact. You didn't have a brother from the start. Jilon Shu only used your brother's body. Following Dustless's words, the atmosphere became unusually tense. Everyone's face was tense. This topic was too heavy. Jilon Shu, I remember him. He killed my parents. Yuji's eyes were red, and crystal-clear tears were rolling down her cheeks. "There will be a day when you take your revenge." Dustless patted Yu Ji's shoulder to comfort her. His gaze was gentle, and then he looked at Jia Yuanshao. His face was as cold as ice. "Now, can we go back? Miss Yu Ji, you really don't want to think about it?" Jia Yuanshao still didn't give up. His tone was a few times heavier. "Master Shu, everything up till now, trash, shut up." Dustless opened his mouth to interrupt Jia Yuanshao. His pair of calm eyes were brewing flames that could melt everyone. "I allowed you to enter my world, but I didn't allow you to do whatever you want in my world. You want to kidnap Yu Ji with morals? Don't be so smug." After finishing his words, Dustless slightly reduced his aura. Bang! Although it was just a trace of his aura, which was insignificant to Jia Yuanshao, it was like Mount Tai was pressing down on him. It was as if the entire world was pressing down on his shoulders. His standing legs instantly knelt down, crushing the floor. So strong. 1,000 Miles Ji and Rima Yuanya were also affected. Dustless didn't target them. The two of them couldn't stop sobbing. They felt as if their necks were grabbed by an invisible hand that could end their lives at any time. "Your world? When did I walk into your world? Don't talk nonsense. This isn't your territory. It's the Black Master Academy. Master Shu and Black Master Hui Yin built it together." Jia Yuanshao was stubborn. Even if his knees were about to be crushed, he still had a deep hatred for Dustless. The hatred between the two could be said to be irreconcilable. Dustless and Jilan Shu would not rest until one of them was dead. Jilan Shu's follower Jilan Shu was also an enemy of Jilan Shu. Jilan Shu also snatched away Jilan Shu's childhood sweetheart, Sayaka Haiyuan. Dustless grinned and stared at Jia Yuanshao, who had a painful expression. There was nothing more humiliating than kneeling in front of the enemy. He taunted, "The ignorant are fearless. Yuan Jia, tell this brat what my world is." Hearing this, Suo Jia the Morning Garden walked to Jia Yuanshao's side with a cold face. Looking at his painful face, she had no sympathy. She had once told him not to hang around in front of Dustless in the future, but Jia Yuanshao had completely turned a deaf ear to it and ignored it. Now that there was a problem, who could he blame? He only had himself to blame. Lord Dustless's line of sight is his god's domain. Every blade of grass and every tree in sight belongs to Master. Sayaka Haiyuan looked down at Jia Yuanshao. Her faint voice was unusually overbearing, as if she was narrating an ironclad fact. "Nonsense." Jia Yuanshao's face changed greatly. This Sayaka Haiyuan was really led astray by Dustless. Her words were not normal. "I've spared you once. Now please die." Dustless's face was frosty, and a rough long bone came out of his palm and flew out like a bow and arrow. Puff! Jia Yuanshao felt pain in his abdomen. He looked down and saw blood all over the ground. In a split second, the bone pierced Jia Yuanshao's abdomen. "Shao!" Seeing this, Rima Yuanya and 1,000 Miles Ji Kue panicked and hurried over. "You two also kneel for me." With a cold face, Dustless's silent Haoshiko haki fell on their heads. Puff! The two of them suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Their internal organs were shaken. The moment the supreme might descended, it was as if they had been punched by an invisible hand. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and fell to the ground, unable to endure the exhaustion. Cough, cough, cough. Jia Yuanshao kept vomiting blood, and his eyes were dim. He looked up at Dustless with a smile on his face. "You just SOSO. You can't kill me with a single move." Jia Yuanshao's tone was very weak, and his breathing was also very small. It could be ignored. The smile on his face was more like joy and pain. "You're about to die, and you still don't repent?" Sayaka Haiyuan's eyes were complicated. Seeing her childhood sweetheart die in front of her, she didn't feel sad. She just felt that it was not worth it for Jia Yuanshao. There was no doubt that Jia Yuanshao died for Yulan Shu, but would Yulan Shu be sad because of his death? The answer was absolutely no. "I forgot to tell you, that was killing gray bones." Dustless responded calmly and then closed his eyes. Ka ka ka. Jia Yuanshao's body inexplicably peeled off, dismembered piece by piece, and disappeared without a trace. Not even a corpse was left. "You bastard!" Jia Yuanli was stunned for a while before he raged like a raging lion. Dustless in front of him was an intruder who invaded his territory, and he had to kill him. "I'll keep you for now, but I have to restrict your freedom." Dustless stared at Jia Yuanli with a playful look. This guy was Yulan Shu's son, and he might be useful to him. "Sayaka, take this guy away. Don't let him run away." Dustless ordered Sayaka, "Find a place to imprison him. Just don't let him die. I won't wait for death." Just as Jia Yuanli was about to stand up, Sayaka Hayuan quietly came behind him. With a karate chop, Jia Yuanli was knocked unconscious. "Let go of Jia Yuanli." Rima Yuanli grabbed Jia Yuanli's arm tightly. Her strength was no match for Sayaka Hayuan, who had drunk Dustless's blood. She quickly gave up and looked at Sayaka Hayuan indifferently. The difference in strength was too great. Chapter 33. Ayaya, what a terrifying monster. Will we be digested if we continue to stay here? Will we be excreted like feces? Dustless touched his chin and looked at Jester with a faint smile. Everyone was speechless when they heard this. "Is there something wrong with you? We're about to be killed, and you're still making such a silly joke. It's a bit rude, but that's exactly what Sir meant." Jester nodded. If they couldn't get out, they would be digested and excreted like feces. "We just saved my mother, and now we're going to die?" Wan Lia gritted her teeth. Her slightly ferocious face showed that she was unwilling. "Even if you want to die here, I don't want to. I haven't had enough fun yet," Dustless replied calmly, and then a flash of light appeared between his fingers. Dustless released a large amount of spiritual pressure from his body. The void flash between his fingers became denser and denser, and its power became stronger and stronger. After a while, Dustless flicked his fingers and a blue light swept out. Wang Su's flash. Boom, boom, boom. The ugly monster, which was as big as a mountain, exploded on the spot. A huge hole was blown in its abdomen by the void flash, and blood spurted out dozens of meters away. The monster died on the spot. Dustless and the others flew out one after another and escaped safely. "Damn it, you actually managed to escape." On a dense tree in the distance, two blurry figures stood. The two of them blended into the leaves, and it was difficult to see them with pure vision. Moreover, the two of them were surrounded by a layer of transparent light, like a barrier which could prevent others from perceiving them. These two people were Raz and Dongqing Ringing. Originally, the two of them were here to send off Dustless. Who would have thought that this guy would be so strong and crush Zorkiel so violently? Even that monster was killed instantly. What are we going to do next? Dongqing Ringing asked. He glanced at Dustless from the corner of his eyes, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. "What else can we do? We're running for our lives, of course." Ross snorted in annoyance. They were going to fight Dustless alone? Forget it. Even if there were 1,000 of them, they would still be crushed. Are we just going to watch this guy leave? Dongqing Run asked in dissatisfaction. His words implied that he wanted to have a big fight with Dustless. If you have any unrealistic thoughts, I advise you to put them down. You're not his opponent yet. Moreover, we have already found an ally. The current Demon King Leonhardt is willing to help us. Ra's words were shocking. His words made Dongqing Run smile. Really? Dongqing Run was extremely excited. Although he did not know who this Demon King was, and he had never seen him in person since he was able to sit on the Demon King's seat, he must be extremely powerful. Furthermore, he controlled an army. All right, let's retreat for now. Taking a deep breath, Dongqing Run suppressed his anger. There was still a long time in the future. There was no need to rush for revenge. Although he wanted to kill Dustless, he was not stupid. This guy was so powerful that he could destroy heaven and earth. Not to mention himself. Even if he teamed up with Raz, they might be killed in an instant. Speaking of which, when did that Demon King become enlightened? Why is he helping us? I am from the Hero Tribe. Dongqing Run turned around and asked in surprise. The Hero Tribe and the Nephilim Tribe had always been at odds. In the past, they even had a big war. Although the war was later stopped, both sides still did not see eye to eye with each other. Now that the Demon King was willing to help Dong Chung run, it was indeed unbelievable. That guy is too strong. The stronger the person, the more unscrupulous they are. Although he has no grudge with Leon Hart, the strong have a common problem, and that is they don't like to follow the rules. Roz said mysteriously. What he meant was that Leon Hart had already regarded Dustless as a threat. In Dustless's house, after rescuing Wan Lea's mother, everyone realized that there was one more beautiful woman. Many people looked at him differently. Zhui put her hands on her hips and looked at Dustless angrily. Her spittle flew all over the place. You are really, Before she could finish her sentence, she stopped. Looking at her carefully, her cute cheeks were already red, and her eyes had become blurred. Obviously, the curse was activated again. You are really asking for trouble. Seeing this, Dustless could not help but laugh. The curse would be activated if she had the slightest thought of disobeying him. Help me. Zhui laid in Dustless's arms, and her voice softened. It sounded like she was asking for help, but her soft tone was more like a disguised request for one soul. Hearing this, the girls looked at Zhui with pity. At the same time, everyone stared at Wan Leah with resentment. This evil curse was so evil that if she had the slightest thought of disobeying Dustless, she would be retaliated. It worked every time. Next time, you can solve it yourself. Dustless glared at Zhui fiercely, then carried her to the bedroom. Everyone knew what to do next. This curse is too evil. Even a nightmare should go to hell. Rafa and Irene couldn't help but shrink her legs. Hearing Zhui's slight moan, her pretty face turned red. Soon, she would also sign a master-servant contract with Dustless. If she had the slightest thought of disobeying Dustless, the curse would follow. Just thinking about it was scary. Only this way can we test if you're loyal to Sir Dustless. Those who have a guilty conscience must be afraid. Wan Leah snorted. Everyone looked at each other, and they could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. Most of them were forced by Dustless using despicable means. Loyalty? Definitely not. It was good enough that they could resist killing him. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.